Chapter 531. Lu Qing arrived in Songqing 3 hours later than expected. By the time he returned to campus, it was dinner time. The entire dormitory was empty without a single person in it. He put down his backpack and leisurely went to the cafeteria. He ordered a series of dishes such as shredded pork with garlic sauce and boiled pork slices. He placed them neatly, took a picture and sent it to Xianxia. After eating to his heart's content but alone, he walked in the direction of the martial arts club to digest. The setting sun shone on the Weishui Lake as if it was plated with a layer of golden red. As he approached the stadium, Lu Qing suddenly saw a familiar figure walking out. It was Li Mao, who was in the second semester of his senior year, wearing a thin turtleneck sweater and a casual jacket. "Hi, senior brother Li Mao. Extra training?" He took the initiative to greet him. Li Mao answered with a hearty smile, "No, I've been training all morning. If I come again I'll be injured. I just finalized the offer and signed a 3-party agreement. I'm a little bit, well, how do I put it? Anyway, I just want to come and have a look." As he spoke, he couldn't help but sigh. "Finalized? Weren't you hesitating before?" Lu Qing didn't continue the sad topic. He changed the topic to something happy. "Yes, I'm going to the capital. I'll take the chance while I'm still young." Li Mao's face showed some complacency, and then he laughed at himself. "After a few years, when I can't afford a house in the capital, I'll take the money I saved and go back to my hometown, open a martial arts club and get married." He had the strength of a top professional 9th pin fighter, and his professional grades were above average. He was quite popular with the companies that had come to the on-campus recruitment and had received several offers. "You're slandering the capital again," Lu Qing joked. Li Mao wanted to say something casually, but when he opened his mouth, he didn't say anything. Many memories and feelings surged in his heart, making it difficult for him to control himself. He took a breath and said with a smile and a sigh, "Cheng, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Coach Sher, and all of you. If you hadn't given up on me and kept encouraging me, I would have left the martial arts club a long time ago and become a coward for the rest of my life. Once I encounter a challenging environment again, I will definitely be nervous, anxious, and perform abnormally. There's no need for that, Senior Li Mao. You have to work hard to overcome your inner demons in order to walk out of it. We're only responsible for cheering you on." Lu Qing didn't take the credit for himself and waved his hand with a smile. Li Mao couldn't help but laugh. Then he let out a long sigh. 2 years ago, I never even dreamed that I would become a top professional 9th pin fighter and lift the national championship trophy. These 2 years have been like a dream." After sighing for a while, he changed the topic and talked about the new national competition in April. "I still haven't understood the meaning of withdraw. It's the same for Talker and Deng Yang. When the time comes, you don't have to consider me in the competition. Give the freshmen more chances to temper themselves. Don't worry about the Dan stage. Think about it, Lin K was already a professional 9th pin fighter when he entered the school. He only officially broke through at the end of his freshman year. You guys have only been training for less than a year. What's the hurry? Do you think you're more talented than Lin K? Do you think you're more hardworking than him?" Lu Qing reminded Li Mao not to be so anxious. Going from a professional 9th pin fighter to a Dan stage in 1 year was enough to be a Heavenly Son candidate. As for his Dan stage in half a year, others couldn't compare to him because he had a cheating device. Li Mao nodded slowly and said with a self-deprecating smile, "That's right. After hearing what you said, we still have a long way to go. Sai, we've been working hard to make it to the national competition and share your burden." "That's not necessary. Our goal this year is to have no goal." Lu Qing laughed and described the actual situation. "Relax. It's normal to take 3 to 5 years to go from a top professional 9th pin fighter to a Dan stage. 8 to 10 years isn't considered long. Many people can't even reach the threshold after 10 to 20 years. They can only watch their chi and blood deteriorate and lose hope. This kind of thing can't depend on a person or a special case. Look at me and Lin Quebec. You have to look at the statistics." Hiss. Li Mao sucked in a breath of cold air. He knew it was difficult to reach the Dan stage, but he didn't know how difficult it was. He only saw his teammates achieve it in 1.5 years. He also saw that Shanbei, Huahai, and Capital martial arts clubs didn't lack new breakthroughs. "Fortunately, I didn't focus on martial arts." Li Mao sighed. "Then I'll set a limit of 10 years, no 5 years. I'll lose my drive if I stay too long." Speaking of this, he asked curiously, "Ching, how many Dan stage fighters do you think our martial arts club will have in the next 2 years?" Deng Yang is relatively stable. At most 1 year, at least half a year. As for the others, not including our junior brothers and sisters next year, We can have at most 2 dance stage fighters. It's not surprising if one doesn't make it. In fact, the probability is quite high. Lu Qing knew Li Mao's temperament and frankly stated his judgment. This was a university martial arts club, not a top force or an advanced martial arts school where many talents gathered. Li Mao listened seriously and didn't mention this matter again. He chatted with Lu Qing about the recent situation of the martial arts club. At the end of the conversation he suddenly laughed bitterly. Suddenly, I don't want to graduate. I want to stay in university like this. Hearing this, Lu Qing suddenly had many feelings. Yes, these 2 years were so beautiful and memorable. He couldn't bear to leave. Although his heart was in turmoil, he still followed the characteristics of the talker, and said, Senior brother Li Mao, you have to think carefully. You will continue to not have a girlfriend in university. Li Mao was stunned and couldn't say anything. He could only wave his hand and say goodbye with clenched teeth. Really, do I have to make these 2 men cry? Looking at Li Mao's back, Lu Qing complained about him and himself. Then he turned around and walked back to the dormitory. As soon as he opened the door, he saw Kai Xiaoming sitting on the simple sofa in the living room. He was playing with his phone while the TV was on. When he heard the commotion, he raised his head and exclaimed, "Oh, you're back? I admire your perseverance and persistence." Before Lu Qing answered, Kai Zongming looked around and hesitated for a moment. "Qing, I want to ask you something. You have to be honest." I'll confess, okay? I ate the bag of beef jerky you put on the table." Lu Qing raised his hand and laughed. With a kick of his heel, he closed the door. "I knew it was you." Kai Zongming shook his finger in annoyance. After a while, he remembered that this wasn't what he wanted to ask about. He pondered for a few seconds and said, "Qing, how likely do you think I am to comprehend, withdraw, and enter the dance stage before graduation?" Seeing that Kai Zongming was so serious, Lu Qing gave up the joking answer. He thought seriously and said, "It's hard to say. This kind of thing depends on talent, opportunity, and your own understanding. If you can find the strength to move yourself and fight for it, it's hard to say this semester, but there's still hope before your senior year. Actually, you don't have to rush. You're only half a year older than me. There's still more than 7 years to go before you're 29. Take one step at a time and your chances of entering the dance stage won't be low." It's as if you didn't say anything. Kai Zongming shook his head and smiled with a complicated expression. I remember you said that you pursued martial arts because you didn't want to repeat your father's life. You didn't want to return to a small city like a pool of stagnant water. You didn't want to be able to imagine what it's like to be 30 or 40 years old when you're only 23 or 24 years old. There won't be many changes. You should seriously ponder about this feeling, this impulse, and see if you can draw strength from it." Hearing this, Kai Zongming suddenly leaned back on the sofa and closed his eyes. He said in an ambiguous tone, "During Chinese New Year, my father had a heart attack and almost couldn't be saved. The doctor said that he was too tired and overworked. He had to take good care of himself in the future. After such an incident, his body collapsed a lot. The company is not only my family's property, but also the livelihood of many relatives on both sides. It's impossible to sell it just like that. Even if we find a professional manager, he might not be able to control those guys. Hey, those guys. If I can't reach the dance stage before graduation, I don't think I can say it in front of my parents as a professional ninth pin drifting in the capital." He described it calmly without revealing any emotion, making it impossible for Lu Qing to comfort him. He could only pat little Ming on the shoulder and say, "So work hard. At times like this, the strong have to change their fate. F***ck off. Can't you be more serious?" Kai Zongming couldn't help but laugh. He was in a better state and didn't talk about what happened just now. He thought about it and said, "I probably don't have much hope of reaching the dance stage this semester. I can only rely on you in the national competition. If you can beat Peng Liyun and Fang Zhirong, Little Yang, and I can definitely beat that explosion maniac together." Lu Qing was stunned for a moment. The corner of his mouth twitched. "You really think highly of me? If you can exhaust most of Fang Zhirong's strength, we can also fight." Kai Zongming took a step back. "I'm not the reincarnation of Buddha. Whether I can beat priest or not is still uncertain, let alone challenge Fang Zhirong." Lu Qing answered self-consciously. "Priest? Damn, you've even given Peng Liyun a nickname? TSK, you're not good at giving nicknames. It's not funny at all." Little Ming's attention was quickly diverted. He cheered up and remembered what someone said just now. "Qing, you're exaggerating. My birthday is on June 2nd, so I'm only 4 months older than you. You actually said it was half a year. It's just rounding off." "Yeah, 4 is rounding off. But I think you're wrong. It should be 8 months. So, you're 1 year older than me? As the group of people from Songqing University trained hard and Lu Qing went back and forth to America again, the beginning of April came. The new University Martial Arts Nationals was officially held in Huahai. P.S. Looking for recommendation tickets and monthly tickets on Monday. Chapter 532. April 6th, Huahai New Era Martial Arts Stadium. The opening match of the National University Martial Arts Competition officially started. Last year's champion, Songqing University Martial Arts Club, accepted the challenge from Guiyang University Martial Arts Club. In the live broadcast room, the host Lu Chang saw that the usually taciturn Wei Buping was irritated by Kai Zongming during the conversation and lost his sense of propriety. At the beginning of the match, Wei Buping's continuous attacks failed and fell into a passive position. The more the match went on, the more anxious he became. Lu Chang couldn't help but sigh and laugh. This contestant from Songqing University is quite unique. His partner had changed to the poison milk hierarch He Xiaowei. This internet celebrity stroked his beard and said, "This young man has a bright future. He should learn how to cook from me." Don't say that. I really think he has the talent to make a living as a martial arts commentator. Lu Chang echoed with a smile. Xiaowei, who do you think will be the champion of the National University competition this time? If it's not Shanbei, I'll shave all my beard. He Xiaowei subconsciously wanted to say this, but when he saw Lu Qing standing at the edge of the arena with his arms crossed, he unconsciously became calm, and replied in a more tactful tone. Let's put it this way. This National University competition is a competition between the 3 big guys and a bunch of kids. The other teams can only fight for the top 4 in the final ranking. They can hold their heads high in front of their old enemies. Indeed, the inhuman stage is a big hurdle. And the other martial arts clubs don't even have a professional 6th pin in the Dan stage. Even if they set up a formation, Peng Liyun, Ren Li, and Lu Qing can handle it alone. How can they fight? Lu Chang glanced at the screen and casually commented on the changes in the situation. Wei Buping's strength is higher than Kai Zongming's, but if this goes on he will lose soon. Haha, Guiyang also doesn't have the confidence to win. They put the main player at the end to give the other members more competition experience. A wise man submits to circumstances. He Xiaowei concluded with a mocking tone. Zhang Dongliang is about the same as her. Li Xiaoyuan of Guangnan is said to be a weak 6th pin, but he hasn't participated in the ranking event yet. Shi Meng, a senior, got a 7th pin certificate at the end of October last year. Su Jialan is very talented, but he has just entered the school and hasn't understood the meaning of withdrawing. The 2 families can compete. However, as you said, it's just a fight for the 4th place. Coincidentally, they are in the same group. Whoever wins will be the first to advance to the next round and avoid Shanbei, Capital, and Songqing in the quarterfinals. Yes. He Xiaowei nodded slightly. Among the top 3, Songqing's other contestants are too weak. Overall, they're a step behind. I don't think they'll make it to the finals unless they're lucky enough to draw Huahai or Guangnan. Yes, if Lin Ke didn't drop out, with his current strength of 6th pin, Songqing University would have a good chance of winning the championship. Lu Chang sighed. Unfortunately, there is no if. The reserves of Songqing University all have their own characteristics and potential, but they are still not mature enough. They don't even have a Dan stage member. Even if Lu Qing can beat Peng Liyun or Ren Li, it won't change the final result. Oh. In Shanbei, Fang Zhirong is a weak 6th pin. Bernhard has the strength of an 8th pin with his supernatural ability of air explosion. Jiang Kongchan of Capital has improved quickly and is already a weak 7th pin. Jiang Jingfeng is short of credits and delayed his graduation. He is a top 8th pin. What can Songqing University do to change the result? We believe in subjective initiative, but we also have to respect objective reality. He Xiaowei's comments were always full of passion, making people want to beat him up. Hey, do you think Jiang Jingfeng delayed his graduation on purpose? To get a taste of the championship? As soon as Lu Chang finished speaking, the situation on the field was clear. Kai Zongming had won the first round of nationals for Songqing University. He Xiaowei sneered. Who knows? But even if they delayed their graduation on purpose, their chances of winning the championship are slim. Peng Liyun is weaker than Ren Li, and Fang Zhirong can beat Jiang Kongchan and Jiang Jingfeng by himself, not to mention Bernhard the explosive maniac. At this point he couldn't control his primitive strength and raised his voice. Tell me, how can Capital win? Oh. If they win, I'll shave off my beard, no, all the hair on my head. What kind of deep hatred do you have with Shanbei? Lu Chang couldn't help but laugh. Was it necessary to poison them like that? He Xiaowei quickly explained, although I'm called the poison milk hierarch, it's only sometimes. I can't say that the sun rises from the east and it will explode with a bang, right? Shanbei will win the championship just like this. There's no doubt about it. Okay. Lu Chang turned to introduce the second round of the competition. At the end he said emotionally, this year's competition is indeed very clear, but it's definitely the most memorable one to watch. 3 Inhuman University students duel. No one has ever done it before and it's hard to find another one after. As they graduate or leave school early, such a glorious scene can't be replicated. In the following match, student Kai Xiaoming almost completed the great feat of 1 versus 2. However, he encountered the tough and determined Zhu Ning and was unable to seize the opportunity to win. Deng Yang, on the other hand, easily defeated his opponent who was in a weakened state. He fought fiercely with Guiyang University's leading player, Chen Mo, who was at the peak of rank 8, for a long time but was unable to turn the tables. With Lu Cheng's appearance, the opening round came to a close. In the next few days, Capital, Huahai, Guangnan, and Shanbei showed up one after another and won all of them. Peng Liyun and Renli didn't even have to fight. The whole group stage was peaceful. The teams led by the 3 Inhumans advanced triumphantly, while the rest of the martial arts clubs competed for the rankings. Only the battle between Huahai and Guangnan was eye-catching. In the end, thanks to Xing Jingjing's outstanding supernatural ability, Huahai narrowly defeated Guangnan and won first place, making the latter face Shanbei in the quarterfinals. In the battle between Shanbei and Guangnan, Peng Liyun finally put himself in the list of fighters, guarding the end. In the first round, Fang Zhirong fought hard against Li Xiaoyuan. After several reversals, he barely defeated his opponent, but he was close to his limit. In the second round, he didn't exhaust Xi Meng much, but Bernhard was badly beaten. Peng Liyun, who hadn't fought since the end of August last year, made his first appearance. He defeated Xi Meng and Su Jialan effortlessly without showing his strength. After Songqing University, Capital, and Huahai defeated their opponents and entered the quarterfinals, the old man Fang Jinju came to the center of the arena again for the final drawing ceremony. Shanbei University Martial Arts Club. He took out the ball and showed it to everyone with a smile. Then, while everyone was holding their breath, he drew Shanbei's opponent. Deng Yang, Kai Zhongming, and He Zi interlocked their fingers and held their chins, murmuring softly, Imperial Capital, Imperial Capital, Imperial Capital. If Shanbei draws Capital, we can face Huahai and have a great chance of entering the finals again. Ha! The old man Fang Jinju looked at the ball and shook his head with a smile. Then he gathered his chi and said loudly, Songqing University Martial Arts Club. Last year's champion and runner-up met in advance. Phew. Lu Qing heard dejected sighs around him, but he wasn't disappointed at all. If they could enter the quarterfinals this year, they would have achieved their goal. At least they didn't let their martial arts club fall off the cliff. He turned his head subconsciously and looked to the other side, only to see Peng Liyun looking at him. His temperament was refreshing, his facial features were clean, and he didn't look like he was in a trance. When their eyes met, the radiance in Peng Liyun's eyes converged. It was as if a thick and terrifying silver lightning had struck down in the dark night, blinding Lu Cheng's vision. However, Peng Liyun didn't back down. His eyes seemed to contain a raging snowstorm, extremely cold, extremely fierce, and extremely powerful. Lu Cheng couldn't help but shudder. After looking at each other and smiling, they both turned back with satisfaction, looking forward to the competition in 2 days. This was the 3rd time they had fought each other. Buzz buzz buzz. Lu Cheng's phone kept vibrating with messages. Go Pikachu. Beat him, beat him. Yen Zhika said with a clenched fist. Beat him. Hipster said concisely. Let's break the Taoist spirit. Renli was enjoying the show. Just as Lu Cheng finished replying and was about to put away his phone, a message from a familiar number came in. Brother-in-law said, good luck. Damn it, I almost thought your number was ghost. Lu Cheng laughed and replied with a fist bump emoji. Then he heard the old man Fang Jinju's voice in his ears. Semifinals, Shanbei vs Songqing, Capital vs Huahai. P.S. This is a transition. Chapter 533. 2 days later at 7 o'clock in the evening, the New Era Martial Arts Stadium was flooded with a large number of spectators. Even though the scalpers had inflated the ticket prices, there was still no lack of people asking for tickets. In just 10 minutes there were many transactions. Even the posters with pictures of Lu Cheng and Peng Liyun facing each other while holding hands were very popular. If it weren't for the security guards at the entrance, all the pictures would have been taken away. The big screen in the arena was playing highlights of Lu Cheng and Peng Liyun's matches in the past few years. Unfortunately, the most recent highlights were from 8 months ago and lacked their recent performances. This made the spectators even more excited and full of guesses. The spectator stands around the arena had been cleared to prevent damage from the aftermath of the inhuman battle. At the same time, the Huahai city government had specially mobilized a group of martial artists from the police force to stand guard at various key locations to prevent accidents. When Peng Liyun heard the clamorous cheers echoing endlessly outside, he snapped out of his daze in the changing room. He looked around at Coach Huang Qing, Second Commander Fang Zhirong, and the others and said with a faint and clean smile, "I'm not going anywhere. I'll be the first to go." His voice wasn't loud and his aura was gentle. Fang Zhirong was inexplicably stunned and forgot his original thoughts. He nodded in agreement. Instructor Huang Qing, whose hair was completely white, nodded slightly and didn't object. As for Bernhard and the rest, they didn't object either. Peng Liyun retracted his gaze and looked at the TV screen in the locker room, his thoughts drifting. At first, he planned to retire from the university martial arts circle after winning his 3rd championship and compete in professional competitions. Who knew that he would be injured by Lin Kei last year and lose his honor? Thus he changed his mind and stayed to fight for another year. In the past 6 months, his life was completely different from his original plan of fighting a high-level battle every week. He was lazy and leisurely, almost not fighting at all. Logically speaking, this would cause his martial arts to regress. However, Peng Liyun experienced something different from the past. He really did settle down and gain something different. And now, it was the season to test this gain. Thunder is yin and yang, one is still and one is active, that's the right way. Extreme activity turns to silence, and extreme quietness leads to action. I've been quiet for long enough. Peng Liyun turned his head subconsciously and looked at the door of the locker room. His line of sight seemed to pass through the door and onto the arena, onto the Songqing University Martial Arts Club. I'm looking forward to it. He let out a sigh spontaneously. Every joint, every muscle, and every acupoint in his body suddenly exploded. They were heavy, powerful, and humming terrifyingly, like rotating turbines and gathering thunder. Hearing this, Fang Zhirong, Bernhard, and the others looked at each other in fear. Spring comes with a clap of thunder, and all living things come to life. In another locker room. Although Deng Yang, He Zi, and Wang Dali didn't think they had done anything wrong, they looked at Lu Cheng with guilt and self-blame. Peng Liyun will definitely be the first to fight. Even if little Yangzi and I, 2 weaklings, fight together, we won't even be enough to fill the gaps between his teeth. Cheng, it's all up to you now. Kai Zongming broke the relatively oppressive atmosphere and said in a self-deprecating manner. You're a weakling, don't drag me into it. Deng Yang protested. Next year I'll definitely be a mighty one of the dance stage. Lu Cheng listened with a calm smile. He picked up a pen and paper and quickly wrote down the list of fighters in the order of the fighters. Lu Cheng, Deng Yang, Kai Zongming. He passed the paper to Yan Xiaoling beside him and said with a slight smile, Sorry to trouble you. Li Xiaowen found a very good job and went to the company for an internship in February. The menial work of the martial arts club was basically handed over to a self-proclaimed reliable sophomore girl. Yan Xiaoling took the list of fighters and nodded excitedly. She rushed out of the door. After a muffled bang, she squatted down with hands on her forehead, eyes full of tears. Who didn't close the locker door? Are you okay? Mu Jingyan asked with concern. He Zi scolded with disappointment. Don't you watch where you're going? Yan Xiaoling looked up with grievance. Normally with my height I shouldn't have hit that spot. Everyone was speechless and almost burst out laughing. The heavy atmosphere was swept away. How many centimeters taller are you today? Yi asked without thinking. Yan Xiaoling was enlightened. She slapped her thigh and said, Oh my God, so that's how it is. Everyone couldn't help but laugh as they watched the short, petite figure flash out of the locker room. King retard. Out of the door Yan Xiaoling paused. She didn't rush to the supervisor station. Instead she took out her phone, entered the forum and posted a post. He smiled at me. He said sorry to trouble you. F***ck, are you crazy? Unparalleled Dragon King, and the others were shocked. Not crazy, I'm a love-struck fool. Brahmin rolled on the floor. But I'm so envious. In the locker room Lu Qing shook his head with a smile. He closed his eyes and suddenly recalled every detail of the past 6 months. Strolling in the rain, encountering gods in the void, self-reflection, ambushing Butcher, suppressing him with precision from start to finish, attacking Mizuki's fleet, grasping the perfect timing, daily life at home, warm and sweet, meaningful and lasting, studying physical invulnerability secret arts in the underground of the Ice God sect, gaining insights and comprehending by analogy, after leveling up, facing Brandon and familiarizing himself with new techniques, pondering every day, practicing diligently, finally getting Lament of the Ice Queen ready for actual combat. Various scenes replayed in his mind. Finally, they merged into a furnace and ignited a burning desire for battle. After 8 months, it was time for him to give it his all again. I can't wait. Lu Cheng suddenly opened his eyes and looked at the door. The temperature in the locker room seemed to have dropped to freezing point, making the unprepared Kai Zhongming, Deng Yang, and the rest shiver. But when they touched the skin on the back of their hands, they realized that the temperature didn't change. Everything that happened before seemed to come from the mind, from the heart. In the live broadcast studio, the host, Lu Chang, looked at the scene in the stadium and sighed. Everyone is so passionate. This match is indeed worth looking forward to. Just the gimmick of a battle between the heavenly sons of the era is enough to attract people, not to mention the fact that both Lu Cheng and Peng Liyun are bursting with popularity. He Xiaowei chimed in with a smile. Also, this is the first time they are on the same level, fighting at the peak of their strength. In December 2 years ago, Peng Liyun was almost one rank higher than Lu Cheng, and he quickly defeated Lin Ke in advance. In April last year, Peng Liyun was seriously injured by Lin Ke's self-sacrifice and was not in his best condition. Now the participants of the two sides had been decided. Lu Cheng and Peng Liyun would no longer be disturbed by other people, and they were finally at the same level, an evenly matched peak competition. Yeah, this reminds me of the words top of the Forbidden City. Xiaowei, who do you think has a higher chance of winning? Asked Lu Chang with interest. Xiaowei shook his head like a rattledrum. That's hard to say. They haven't fought seriously for half a year. How am I supposed to judge? As soon as he said that, Peng Liyun's fans in front of the screen heaved a sigh of relief. They felt that the dark clouds over their heads had mostly dissipated. As for the audience who liked Lu Cheng, they were slightly disappointed. If Xiaowei thought that Peng Liyun would win, that would be cursing his opponent. If he thought that Lu Cheng could win, how could one's supernatural powers defy fate? Indeed. They have been accumulating their strength for half a year. I wonder what kind of power they will unleash today. They might both be close to pin 4. Lu Chang lamented. He suddenly thought of a rumor and said with a smile, I heard that Lu Cheng won't be returning to Wuxia Club and will be joining Longhu Club in July. Peng Liyun is about to graduate from university and will definitely return to Shangqing sect. I feel like they are another pair of arch-rivals like Dragon King and Warrior Sage. They are the future Dragon King and Warrior Saint? Have you asked Living Buddha Shan or Wisdom King Zhihai before you said this? He Xiaowei snorted and retorted instinctively, even if the living Buddhas of past generations would slow down after reaching physical invulnerability and reach a bottleneck, who knows when Lu Cheng and Peng Liyun will surpass them. But what about Zhihai? He has only reached physical invulnerability for 3 years and has already won the title of king. Is this something that ordinary people can compare to? Even if there are coincidences like when Dragon King and Warrior Sage fought in other competitions and both were heavily injured, or when some of the titled mighty ones met in advance and the winner was injured, he might be able to defeat many first pin and titled mighty ones. This is enough to prove his strength. He has already firmly suppressed the other heavenly sons of China. The dates of the 5 major title competitions were staggered. The finals of the Battle of the Kings were usually held at the end of March or the beginning of April. Daxing Temple's Zhihai won the challenge more than 20 days ago and became the new king of the year. He was honored as Wisdom King. That's true, but Zhihai is 4 years older than Peng Liyun and 5 years older than Lu Cheng. Strictly speaking, you can't directly compare them, Lu Chang said to the point. Then we'll see in 4 or 5 years. At that time, if Lu Cheng and Peng Liyun can reach physical invulnerability, they won't let down the title of Heavenly Son of China. As for the titles, Xiaowei laughed. The host, Lu Chang, was afraid of causing a dispute and didn't want to delve into this topic. He quickly said with a professional smile, All right, the pre-match commentary has come to an end. Let's cut to the off-site interview and hear what the audience has to say. The scene changed to the last line of people queuing to enter the stadium. The reporter handed the microphone to a pretty girl with straight shoulder-length hair. Hello, may I know which side you support? Shanbei. Peng Liyun. The girl answered without hesitation. What? The reporter asked. The pretty girl with the aura of a student smiled and said, I prefer Peng Liyun's personality. He's more handsome. The girl who boldly voiced her opinion blushed. She curled her lips and turned her head to the other side. What about you? The reporter saw a girl with a sweet smile nearby. She was eager to give it a try. I like Lu Qing. He's more manly. The girl shouted after pondering for a long time. After the interview, the director looked at the time and cut the scene back to the stadium. The host, Lu Chong, announced excitedly, "Everyone, the competition is about to begin." At this moment, Lu Qing, who was sitting in the away team's seat, received a message from Xianxia. It was a photo of their fingers intertwined and their rings reflecting off each other. I'm with you. Clenching fist expression, the girl said. 2 against 1 doesn't seem fair. Snickering expression, Lu Qing replied and locked the screen. He passed his phone to Kai Zhongming for safekeeping and stood up slowly to look at the arena. On the other side, Peng Liyun took off the white towel draped over his body and stood up slowly. Chapter 534. Lu Qing. Peng Liyun. All of a sudden the sound waves exploded. Countless spectators raised their arms and shouted the name in their hearts at the top of their lungs. It was as if a forest had suddenly grown around the stadium and a fighter jet had swept past. Lu Qing didn't unleash his aura. He walked along the aisle at a moderate pace and slowly climbed the stone steps. He stood on the left side of the referee. At the same time, Peng Liyun also walked into the arena calmly. It was as if he was waiting for the battle to officially start before he unleashed his accumulated strength, imitating the horror of a flood breaking through a dam. Their eyes met and they smiled. Both of them had grasped the other's thoughts. The referee with a half-beard looked left and right. When the electronic clock struck the hour, he raised his right hand and announced loudly, "Talk time begins." Peng Liyun lowered his waist and his body seemed to sway with a natural rhythm. As he swayed, Lu Qing couldn't find any flaws. He looked over and smiled faintly. "I've been waiting for you for a long time." "Me too." Lu Qing smiled casually in response. For the next 2 minutes, neither of them spoke again. They were both counting down the time in their hearts just like a race car. 2 minutes, 1 minute, 30 seconds. Peng Liyun's body emitted a low turbo pressure sound. It was slow and drawn out, with pauses and pauses. It made people feel what it meant to be ready to go. 10, 9, 8, 7. Lu Qing's muscles and fascias tightened. The exchange of hot and cold in his body seemed to be brewing into a terrifying eye of a storm. 3, 2, 1. Begin. As the referee swung his right hand down, Peng Liyun's waist sank and reversed in an instant. The sound of turbine compression exploded in unison. His entire body pounced out like a bolt of lightning. His steps made the arena shake rapidly, and the muffled sound of his steps rolled in the hearts of everyone, like the first thunderclap of the arrival of spring. His shadow was still there and the shaking hadn't stopped. However, he had already crossed more than 20 meters and appeared in front of Lu Qing in a flash. Lu Qing's back turned sharply and his muscles swelled. He completed the turn in an instant and circled to the side. He broke through the air barrier, stirring up a strong wind as he smacked his opponent in the face. Bang! The wave, that was strong enough to send a grown man flying, came at him. Peng Liyun pulled his left arm and raised his palm to block his face. At the same time, the silver light in his eyes fell and his muscles flashed. His right shoulder shook violently, and his arm swelled up as he swung it to the side in a condescending manner. Lu Qing straightened his back, clenched his right fist and blocked the attack. Then he would follow up with a crushing punch with his left hand and a low knee kick to gain the upper hand. However, in the reflection of his ice mirror, Peng Liyun's muscles and fascia were completely different from when he was exerting force. It was similar to the situation when he was performing the simplified version of the fighting formula. There was a problem. Lu Qing's heart skipped a beat. The 2 large muscles on his back suddenly bulged and pulled his right arm up. He clenched his fist and punched out. It was as if he was blocking, and guiding. Bang! As soon as the 2 of them made contact, Lu Qing could feel his opponent's extraordinary strength. If he took it head-on, his arm would definitely be knocked away and he would be knocked backwards. His clenched fist suddenly stretched out, and his palm moved diagonally from the bottom to the top. He skillfully diverted Peng Liyun's attack, and although it seemed as if it was as light as the wind, it was actually a very dangerous parry. Peng Liyun took advantage of the momentum to turn his body. He raised his left arm again and in the flash of an electric arc, it swelled and hammered downwards. The basic martial arts of the Thunder Sect, lightning and fire stance, could stimulate the tailbone and cause an outburst. At the high-ranked Dan stage, there would be a corresponding advanced version of the secret art. After Peng Liyun comprehended Heaven's golden flame, He simplified many of the steps and used pure electric shock to injure the body with extremely strong control. He obtained a technique that weakened the effect but allowed him to use it faster. Bang, bang, bang. He swung his arms, and in the flash of electric arcs, he hammered down ferociously. This caused the surrounding air to condense into layers of dark clouds that weighed down on Lu Cheng's heart, bringing about a terrifying mental deterrence. This also caused the audience to have an inexplicable hallucination. It was as if Peng Liyun had transformed into the god of thunder with a giant hammer in his hand. His upper body was bare, and his bronze muscles were wrapped in electric arcs. Amidst the sweat dripping down his masculine and powerful aura, he swung and smashed again and again. It was completely different from his usual style, and it was refreshing. Lu Cheng didn't dare to be careless. He immediately circulated his qi and blood to stimulate the corresponding parts of his body. Simplified fighting formula. His muscles bulged and he pulled back his arm in a fighting posture. His fist shot out like lightning towards his opponent's giant hammer. He was going to meet force with force and meet force with force. Boom, boom, boom. He exploded 3 times in a row and bounced back 3 times, stirring up an invisible airflow that turned into waves. The electric arcs flickered and splashed everywhere. Boom. Their arms propped up their sleeves, and their muscles looked like they were about to explode. Peng Liyun's explosion was still slightly inferior to the secret technique. His body shook and he took a step back. Just as Lu Cheng was about to take the opportunity to stretch his back and launch a series of attacks to bring the rhythm into his control, he suddenly put his palms together. It was as if he was about to unleash the thunder blade with a thunderous boom. Lu Cheng shifted his center of gravity and immediately turned to the right in an attempt to avoid being struck by lightning. However, Peng Liyun's strike didn't make any sound. Instead, the sound of a vortex spinning madly in his body sounded again. A huge and strange suction force appeared out of thin air, pulling Lu Cheng to the front. In the previous hammer strike, he had secretly left electric arcs, accumulating a layer of single-attribute electric charge on his opponent's body. Now that north and south were attracting each other, it came in handy. Thunder begets magnetism and magnetism begets force. After the suction, Peng Liyun pulled his palms apart, pulling out a silver-white electric snake as thin as a cicada's wing. It was blinding. Pseudo-cloudless thunder blade. However, Lu Cheng seemed to have been prepared. Just as he was pulled forward, he took advantage of the momentum and squatted down. Not only did he dodge the instantaneous electric light in time, but he also threw a punch at his opponent's waist. How could he, who had stepped into the realm of encountering gods in the void and self-reflection, not notice the layer of electric charge on his body? He had been holding back all this time to create an opportunity. Bam! The two of them were less than half a step apart. Before the crisp sound faded, the punch was already close. Cold sweat beaded on Peng Liyun's forehead as he reversed the vortex. The humming sound erupted again. Lu Cheng's punch was getting slower and slower, as though he was caught in a repulsive force field. However, at this moment he snapped his fingers and opened them, shooting out streaks of crystal clear and cold ice soul brilliance. Breaking through the surface with a single point, the force field was penetrated. Seeing that the cold streaks were about to reach his body, Peng Liyun, who didn't feel that everything was fine after reversing the vortex, pulled his spine and pulled his body diagonally backward. The streaks of white streaks brushed past him and covered the surface of his clothes with a layer of frost. Lu Cheng bounced his waist and stood up. Striding forward, he clenched his fist and launched a forward charge attack. Peng Liyun extended his palms downwards and crossed them into a net, firmly blocking the attack. Lu Cheng didn't manage to land a hit, so he took advantage of the situation and turned around, his back facing his enemy. Then he swung his elbow backwards and struck fiercely. With a crisp sound, Peng Liyun's raised arm was swung away helplessly. Once again he took a step back. Lu Cheng had already turned around. He retracted his qi and blood and immediately exploded them. He was about to launch a series of explosive attacks with the precision of a ruler. Left eye soul technique, right emperor yen technique. Alternating, never-ending attacks. However, at this moment, Peng Liyun lowered his waist and swung backwards. Amidst the shaking of the arena, he made a flash attack backwards and dodged 30 meters away, close to the edge. Crack! Lu Cheng's explosive Dan force rushed to his feet, causing the surrounding green bricks to soften into powder. Using the terrifying rebounding force, he spread his wings and leaped forward. In the blink of an eye, he had closed in on his opponent. Rumble, rumble, rumble. Peng Liyun displayed his body movements and made a series of turns, stirring up gusts of strong wind, not giving his opponent a chance to gain momentum. Lu Cheng vaguely understood the key point of their fight. On the surface, it looked like they had the upper hand, but in fact, it was a battle of rhythm. The one who could interrupt and destroy the other's momentum and control the changes of speed would have the upper hand and a chance to accumulate victories. Unconsciously, he had a new understanding of the battle of high-ranked dance stage fighters. After several turns, he still couldn't get rid of his opponent. However, Peng Liyun took the opportunity to complete the outline of the Green Jade Talisman book in his mind. He condensed a thunder snake in his palm and released a powerful bolt of lightning that turned from green to purple. Simplified physical invulnerability move, Thunder Seal, revealed. With the help of the ice mirror, Lu Qing had already sensed it. He pulled his waist and back, swung his center of gravity and dodged to the side. The lightning struck the ground of the arena, leaving a long, meandering charred mark like a big tree. Peng Liyun immediately counterattacked when his opponent's rhythm paused. He lowered his qi and blood and condensed them into a single point, in exchange for a violent explosion and ferocious rush. Bam! He took a step forward, his right arm swelled and punched. His fist was covered with a layer of silver-white thunder snake, as if he was wearing an exaggerated thunder glove. It was heavy, strong, and fierce. Lu Qing followed up with force concentration. He pushed his feet together and rushed forward with the heart-drilling hammer, blocking his opponent's fist. Boom! The explosion broke up the electric arc and the impact caused a shock. The two fighters were evenly matched. One was slightly paralyzed, while the other's qi and blood were slightly disturbed. Bam! 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 Peng Liyun kept punching with his fists. When they were evenly matched, he suddenly turned his body and pulled back his leg, creating another bolt of lightning. Boom! 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 His whip leg followed by a knee strike followed by an arm flick followed by a reverse swing, and a reverse swing followed by a hammering with the other hand. The series of attacks flowed smoothly. Every strike burst out with Dan force, spewing out thunder snake illuminating the arena. In the eyes of the audience, Peng Liyun was like the thunder god swinging his hammer in the beginning. Now he had turned into a bolt of lightning, striking again and again, blurring the audience's vision. The Nine Tribulations chain was shockingly powerful. Lu Qing's spirit was shaken and shook. Fortunately, the ice mirror had been formed. His consciousness was in midair, so he barely resisted and didn't slow down. Relying on a clear understanding of his surroundings and his opponent, he kept bursting out Dan Qi, punching and kicking. Sometimes he used Ice Spirit, sometimes he used Emperor Yin, and fought fiercely with Peng Liyun. Every time they collided, it was like a bomb being detonated, shaking the ground, creating craters and filling the air with smoke and dust. The paralysis was accumulating and the shock was heavy. Although both of them used force concentration to dissipate most of the effects, it was inevitable that there would still be problems. Peng Liyun's Nine Tribulations chain was based on the Nine Heavens fusion, a unique physical invulnerability skill. The chain was tight and the force was continuous. Even if Lu Qing used 24 blizzard strikes, he was gradually at a disadvantage. Boom! Just as they finished another fist collision, Peng Liyun suddenly pulled his fascia, flicked his joints, and made a rapid attack with overlapping afterimages. Machine God Fist. He took the initiative to control the speed of the change in rhythm. But just as he made the adjustment, Lu Qing swayed his center of gravity backward, pulled his waist and swung away under the pressure of the fist wind. Not too early, not too late, just right. His punch missed and his pursuit slowed down. Peng Liyun looked at Lu Qing, who had steadied himself on the ground, and understood that he knew the importance of rhythm. Being in his own rhythm would make the enemy passive. Every move would be restrained, and the more he fought, the more difficult it would be. Up until now, the two of them had been fighting back and forth, and it was a tie again. At this time, the audience came back to their senses and burst into cheers. Just now, Lu Qing and Peng Liyun were attacking and defending each other, and the whole process was so intense that they almost couldn't breathe. How exciting. Two murderous weapons in human form. Evenly matched. I'm afraid they are close to the level of professional fourth pin? In the live broadcast room, the host Lu Chang blurted out. He Xiaowei nodded in a daze. Yes, but they probably won't participate in the ranking event. When they reach physical invulnerability, they can directly get third pin. Peng Liyun rarely participated in the ranking event, and Lu Qing had only been there once. Relying on their own rapid progress, they easily got the certificate based on the hard standard of the state. Good. Peng Liyun thought to himself, and the fighting spirit in his eyes grew stronger. With a flash attack, he closed in on his opponent and made another strong attack. Good move. Lu Qing was in high spirits and he didn't dodge. Instead, he returned his qi and blood, balanced into a dan and spurted out his force. Then he pushed his feet inward, shook his right arm and turned it into a steel whip and swung it down diagonally. Bam! There was a loud explosion and the ground was in a mess. The two of them swayed and then closed in again, either bombarding each other with blast punches or vibrating Zen hammers. Boom! 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 The two of them fought until sand and pebbles flew everywhere. The deafening sound was completely displayed. They had learned their lesson from before and didn't reveal any flaws. They were evenly matched. At most, one of them would occasionally gain the upper hand, but it would be gone in the blink of an eye. The intense battle made the audience exclaim in satisfaction, and their blood couldn't help but boil. They raised their hands and shouted loudly, both to cheer and to vent. 7 or 8 minutes passed. Even though Lu Cheng and Peng Liyun were at the inhuman level, they couldn't help but show signs of declining in various aspects, especially Peng Liyun, who was both mentally and physically affected. He was already showing signs of fatigue. Lu Cheng was replenished by the Jin Dan, so his physical condition was pretty good except for his mental state. It's time. With a thought, he controlled his qi and blood, stimulated his body, and used the simplified wholeness formula in exchange for a clear mind. Bam! He stretched his back, stepped forward and attacked. His right fist was surrounded by red and white flames and he punched straight ahead. His momentum was so strong that it overpowered his opponent in an instant. Peng Liyun's mind was slightly shaken. He lowered his arm and punched downwards, hitting the surface of Lu Cheng's fist. Bam! Amidst the loud noise, Peng Liyun's eyes flashed with surprise. His forearm bounced back involuntarily, almost hitting his chest. His body couldn't help but sway. Bam! 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 There was no joy in Lu Cheng's eyes. He spread out his arms with indifference and combined with the explosion of the Dan stage, he attacked with precision. One punch was crystal cold and the other was heavy and scorching hot. He forced Peng Liyun into a defensive position, struggling to hold on. With the rhythm under his control, Lu Cheng suddenly paused in the midst of his consecutive attacks, allowing the flames, force and mental state of the Dan balance to compress inwards, away from the cold and away from the darkness. His eyes turned dark in an instant, deep and indescribable, like a night without stars or moon. Bam! Lu Cheng's blood returned to him and he came back to life. He stepped forward with his left foot, swung his right arm, and punched Peng Liyun like a violent snowstorm. Self-created unique skill, Lament of the Ice Queen. Instead of being surprised, Peng Liyun was overjoyed. At the moment his opponent changed his rhythm, he reversed the yin and yang in his body, creating a vortex that devoured each other. According to reliable information, Muko Yamashita had mastered the swordsman formula and had used it on his companions a few times. Therefore, there was enough reason to suspect that Lu Cheng, who had close ties with the military, had obtained the wholeness formula. I've been waiting for a long time just for this moment. Although he wasn't sure what had happened to allow him to use the 9 words formula so quickly without the need for hand seals or secret sounds, it was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. With a bam, Peng Liyun crossed his palms and pushed them out, facing Lu Cheng's hammer attack. The surrounding light dimmed in a frightening manner. Poof! A muffled sound like a dud was heard. Peng Liyun's palm that was holding Lu Cheng's fist glowed with a layer of ice. The freezing spread rapidly, sealing him in ice in an instant, as though he had been placed in a transparent coffin. Lu Cheng felt his mental and physical strength leaking out rapidly into the depths of Peng Liyun's palm, as though he had encountered the star-sucking great skill. It was the same unique skill that he had created himself, reverse vortex. Thump, thump, thump. Lu Cheng withdrew his hand abruptly and took 3 steps back. His legs were weak and he looked exhausted. A lose-lose situation, said the guest commentator He Xiaowei in amusement. Before he could finish his sentence, he saw Lu Cheng energize and regain his vigor. Then, with a sliding step, he closed in on his opponent who had yet to break free from the ice seal. The second strike of the simplified wholeness formula. Did he take his medicine? He Xiaowei was shocked. How many lives does this guy have? Up, down, left, right, back and back? And he's still a hero? It was just a simplified version, so the effect wasn't as good. Lu Cheng wasn't at his peak, but his punches and kicks weren't slow at all. He swung his left arm, straightened it into a spear and aimed it at Peng Liyun's throat. Peng Liyun was frozen, so his body's reaction was slow. He shouldn't be able to parry in time. At that moment, an electric light flashed and landed on Peng Liyun's elbow. The shock caused his forearm to swing out violently, blocking Lu Cheng's fist with a bang. Following that, Peng Liyun kept shooting out silvery white electric current to stimulate the corresponding parts of his body. This allowed his sluggish and stiffened muscles to move correctly, blocking Lu Cheng's attacks one after another. How can this work? Lu Qing was stunned. He was almost counterattacked by his opponent. How can this work? He Xiaowei blurted out, dumbfounded. Is this the knee-jerk reaction? Or is he using electric current to simulate neuron signals to forcibly move his frozen body? Is he still King human? He's already an inhuman. No. I can't let Peng Liyun break free from his stiffness. I have to end this quickly. Lu Qing couldn't be bothered to be stingy with his mental strength. He kept drawing back his qi and blood and blasting out his Dan force. One punch was covered in frost to replenish the effects of the cold, while the other was surrounded by red, detonating externally to create vibrations. Peng Liyun forced himself to perform force concentration. The feeling of being frozen and stiffened lessened each time. Although his internal injuries were worsening, he didn't show any signs of losing. Lu Qing stepped forward, stirring up strong winds. Seizing the opportunity when his opponent's movements were affected, he switched to 8 different positions and struck 8 ice spirit force. Peng Liyun was on the verge of collapsing. At that moment, Lu Qing used snow cover followed by cold devour. Nimble as a fox, he flashed behind Peng Liyun. Taking advantage of Peng Liyun's missed attack, he was going to win. At the critical moment, the turbine in Peng Liyun's body spun again, releasing a strong repulsive force. Lu Qing's heart was as cold as ice. Unmoved, he channeled his qi and blood to stimulate his body and used the simplified fighting formula again. Bam! He retracted his arm and swung it out with his bulging muscles, breaking through the air barrier and breaking through the force field. Then he swung his arms and struck continuously with Zen, not giving his opponent a chance to catch his breath. Bam bam bam. Peng Liyun's qi and blood churned and his muscles twitched. Affected by the electric current, his limbs became sluggish. Exhausted, Lu Qing paused for a moment and used the simplified wholeness formula one last time. Invigorated, he took a step forward and struck with a Zen punch with his left fist. Peng Liyun was wobbling, his internal organs on the verge of rupturing. Bam! Lu Qing didn't hold back. He continued visualizing and raised his right arm. Severe warning. Peng Liyun's body was so sluggish that it was difficult for him to dodge. He could only use the electric current to stimulate him and raise his arm to receive the blow. Bam! Peng Liyun's body trembled and he stood rooted to the spot. Although his mind was under the thunder god's suppression and his thoughts weren't completely frozen, he couldn't send out signals in time to control his body. Lu Qing swung his left arm and opened his palm, pressing it against his opponent's head. The referee raised his right hand and ended the long and arduous battle. First round, Lu Qing wins. Lu Qing heaved a sigh of relief. Until the very end, he felt that priest would be able to turn the tables. Once his momentum dropped, his spirit withered. In terms of other aspects, he was still slightly inferior to Peng Liyun. Moreover, the simplified wholeness formula's effect was getting worse with each strike. If his opponent could withstand 3 more strikes, he would probably be the one to lose. Of course, priest's energy consumption wouldn't be much lower than his. Even if he could break free from the effects of paralysis, he might not be able to seize the opportunity to win. Victory was only a hair's breadth away. Peng Liyun recovered, stared at Lu Qing and blurted out, "Encountering gods in the void?" "Yeah." Lu Qing nodded calmly. "Impressive." Peng Liyun praised. With great difficulty he turned and left. He shook his head and smiled as he walked. He didn't feel dejected, only the urge to try again. The surrounding audience came to their senses and applauded enthusiastically. Chapter 535. Looking at Peng Liyun staggering back and feeling his own muscles trembling uncontrollably under the influence of the residual electric current, Lu Qing, who was standing in the middle of the arena, suddenly felt a little emotional. "I finally defeated the great demon king fair and square. It wasn't easy at all. From today onwards, he and I will truly stand on the same level. We will look at each other on equal footing. It has been 2.5 years since Master brought me to Shanbei to meet Peng Liyun in the morning to receive his education and set my goal. Over hundreds of days and nights, step by step, I finally reached this point. Of course, it didn't mean that he would be able to suppress Taoist priest from now on. He could sense that even with the use of secret techniques, the difference between the two of them was only a hair's breadth. If he hadn't misjudged the situation and carelessly clashed with the lament of the Ice Queen, the outcome might have been completely different. And at the current stage of the advancement of the inhuman level, every step forward would be extremely difficult. Even if he were to master the fire sex techniques and Taoist priest's mastery of other supreme arts, he would only be able to enrich his means and surprise his opponent once or twice. He wouldn't be able to bring about any substantial improvement. For a long period of time, the two of them would be evenly matched. Lu Qing took one last look at Peng Liyun before slowly retracting his gaze. He thought to himself, next, our competition will be to see who can reach the Dragon Gate faster and who can achieve physical invulnerability first. On the spectator stand, and Xiaoyang, who had specially bought a ticket, uncrossed his hands and leaned back. He sighed and muttered to himself, hey, priest didn't go all out but lost the match. It wasn't that Peng Liyun had never failed in the past. However, he would either lose to the mighty ones or lose because he wanted to see his opponent's secret technique. It was rare for him to go all out and still lose to his opponent. This was even more so when it came to a battle of the same level. In the changing room of Capital Academy, Renly watched the entire live broadcast. She wasn't worried that it would affect the second semi-final match that was about to begin. At this time, her doll-like beautiful face had a bit more disappointment and also a bit more relief. He was disappointed because Lu Qing had finally caught up with him. His worries had become a reality. He was relieved because it was proven that Taoist priests could also fail. There were also times when they were powerless. They weren't invincible demons. The little shadow in his heart was swept away. I can defeat you too. She rubbed the sheathed longsword on her lap. It was warm to the touch and the brass was as good as new. Lu Qing, Lu Qing. Peng Liyun, Peng Liyun. Amidst the cheers and cheers of the audience, Lu Chang, the host in the live broadcast room, sighed. What a wonderful match. Lu Qing is so strong. The era of the big devil is over. Indeed. Even though the gap between their performances isn't big, and Peng Liyun might be able to win the next match, the invincible Demon King has indeed passed away. The guest commentator He Xiaowei sighed and agreed. From now on, the elites won't be lonely anymore. Experts aren't lonely. Well said. They don't have to worry about not having an opponent of the same level. They can train and improve each other. They can be like friends and enemies, surpassing the past. Lu Chang praised. He then added, the enemy I'm talking about is a competitor. Fans nowadays are very scary. They would accuse you of anything you don't agree with. You have to be very careful with your words. Yes, such a battle is rare in the inhuman professional competition. Everyone can always reminisce about it. When the time comes, Lu Chang and I will come up with a detailed commentary version. It won't be like just now where you can't catch up with the rhythm after a slight pause. Haha, if everyone wants to watch the replay now, our White Jade Hall video supports online replays and slow acting. He Xiaowei helped his partner to advertise. Lu Chang nodded his head slightly in satisfaction. He then sighed. It's a pity that Lu Qing is going to enter the professional competition as an intern in his 4th year. Otherwise, he would be an unshakable super demon king in the next university martial arts competition. What's the point of bullying a primary school student? Without Peng Liyun, Renli, and opponents of similar strength, what's the point of bullying noobs? It's a waste of time, a waste of life. He Xiaowei said with a smile. Lu Chang thought for a while and answered seriously, personally, I have to admit that bullying noobs is really interesting. As he spoke, he laughed. He Xiaowei couldn't help but laugh as well. Alright, the second round is about to begin. Let's see how much strength Lu Qing has left and whether he can still create a miracle. After a few seconds, Lu Chang's face turned serious. I don't think Lu Qing can do anything after defeating Peng Liyun. He Xiaowei was never stingy with his views. Shut up. Every single one of Shanbei's supporters and Peng Liyun's fans shouted the same word in their hearts. Early in the morning in America, the sky was slightly bright. Xianxia was leaning against a pillow with a computer in front of her, a tablet in her left hand and a phone in her right hand. She continued to watch the live broadcast and replayed the previous battle over and over again. She kept scrolling through the forums and Weibo with praises. When the referee announced the result, Yan Shaoling jumped up from the seats of the Songqing University Martial Arts Club. She waved her arms excitedly and mumbled incomprehensible words. If Ez hadn't held her back, she really didn't know what she would have done. Another diehard Lu Qing fan, Deng Yang, also waved his fists wildly and bumped fists with Kai Zhongming, Wang Dali, and the others over and over again. The others were a little speechless. Damn retard. Little Ming cursed under his breath as he looked left and right with the corner of his mouth raised. Qing is really King awesome. Immersed in joy, they forgot that the match was not over yet. They only calmed down when the freckled and handsome Fang Zhirong stepped onto the stone steps. Half expectantly and half indifferently, they waited for the referee to wave his arm. In the arena, looking at the slightly gloomy and arrogant enemy opposite him, Lu Qing didn't take a break. He concentrated his qi and blood, afraid that he would waste what little energy he had left. Although this would cause his body to be continuously numbed and stimulated by the electric current, When the battle officially started, he could neutralize an attack during the match. Looking at Lu Cheng's slightly twitching body, Fang Zhirong didn't dare to be negligent. He got into a stance and concentrated. Lu Cheng was indeed close to his limit and was severely affected by the electric shock. However, a starving camel is still bigger than a horse. A struggling beast is equally ferocious. The referee didn't wait. He raised his right hand and swiftly swung it down. Begin. Fang Zhirong bent his back and darted to the side in a strange posture. He was like a slithering venomous snake, like a wild wolf sneaking up on its prey. His body seemed to darken as though he was leaving a black shadow behind him. He wanted to circle around his enemy and wait for a chance to deliver a fatal blow. Lu Cheng took a deep breath and endured the numbness and soreness in his muscles. Using his powerful control of self-reflection as the pivot, he pounced forward with a bang. He instantly went from a standstill to high speed. When he turned, he brushed against the void, breaking through the air barrier and stirring up strong winds. He wanted to take the initiative to pursue his enemy. Bam, bam, bam. The strong winds continued and lightning intertwined. Lu Cheng kept changing directions as though a deity was casting a spell. He closed the distance between him and Fang Zhirong amidst his shouts. However, his opponent's movements were strange and slippery. It was hard to lock onto him in a hurry. At this moment, Lu Cheng focused and outlined the ancient character. His qi and blood followed suit and stimulated a certain part of his body. His eyes suddenly turned sharp and cold. A murderous aura shot out and enveloped his enemy. Fang Zhirong's mind wavered. It was as though he had come to a blood-soaked battlefield and was facing a general on horseback with a butcher's knife. He was trembling from the inside out and his body froze. It was this pause that allowed Lu Cheng to close in. He gathered his qi and blood and dispelled part of the numbness. Wearing a glittering and frosty glove on his left fist, he swung it sideways. The effect of the simplified army formula wasn't strong. Fang Zhirong woke up after a short pause. Seeing that he couldn't avoid the ice spirit heavy punch, he could only explode his Dan force, swell his arms and punch forward to block. Bam! Fang Zhirong's body swayed. In terms of strength he was on par with Lu Cheng. However, his qi and blood were frozen, causing his muscles to stiffen and his movements to slow down. Bam! Lu Cheng did another force concentration. His other fist, surrounded by crimson flames, shot out like a cannonball. Bam bam bam. He did a series of bursts, alternating between using ice spirit to slow down his opponent and Emperor Yen to hurt him. His movements were smooth, each move heavy and precise. Bam bam bam. Fang Zhirong struggled to hold on and barely managed to defend himself. He wanted to use a killing move to get out of the predicament or dodge and regroup, but he could not find a single chance. His opponent's control of the rhythm and the connection between the moves were as if it had been measured with a ruler. There was no flaw. The ultimate technique that he had worked hard to learn over the past year was completely useless. In the midst of the intense attacks, Lu Cheng suddenly slowed down. Using his advantage, he visualized the heavy and scorching Emperor Yen and the god of fire, Zhurong, who was riding a crimson dragon. Thump. He stepped forward, pulled back his right arm, drew his bow, and shot a heavy punch. Fire Sect's simplified physical invulnerability move, internal explosion punch. In the previous battle, Lu Cheng had used too much of his ice force, which had drained it. He couldn't use severe warning anymore. Even if he tried, the effect on Fang Zhirong would be limited, and he wouldn't be able to leave any injuries. It was a waste. At this moment, Fang Zhirong was at a loss for what to do with his opponent's change in rhythm. He could only use force concentration and spurt out Dan Qi. He raised his palm and blocked Lu Cheng's fist. Boom. It was as if a bomb had exploded in his body. His qi and blood were tumbling madly, and his internal organs were about to shift. Lu Cheng withdrew his qi and blood and threw out another ice spirit heavy punch, which was shrouded in cold air. It hit Fang Zhirong's arm, which was barely holding up, and made him stagger backward. Fang Zhirong's muscles stiffened, and he hurriedly held his Dan and struggled to defend himself. Another visualization and another internal explosion. Expressionless, Lu Cheng took a step forward, raised his right fist, and smashed it down heavily on his opponent's raised arms. Boom. Fang Zhirong's eyes, nostrils, ears, and mouth were all red. His qi and blood were tumbling so much that it was difficult for him to circulate them. His internal organs were severely injured. Lu Cheng withdrew his force and tried to throw another ice spirit punch. However, his head was suddenly dizzy. His spirit had reached its limit. Before he could use force concentration, his condensed qi and blood dispersed. Fang Zhirong was stunned at first. Then he seized the opportunity to suppress his injuries. He stretched his back and swung backward, covering more than 10 meters in one leap. That wasn't the end. He made a forceful turn and dodged to the side. Lu Qing felt it was a pity. He tried to catch up with him and try again with a normal attack. However, as soon as he took a step, he felt the world spinning around him. He almost fell and could only stand there helplessly. When he made his move, Fang Zhirong was like a bird startled by the twang of a bow. He swung his center of gravity and hurriedly retreated, as if he was scared out of his wits. Lu Qing couldn't help but break into a smile. Once he started laughing, he couldn't stop. It was because of Fang Zhirong's overreaction and the satisfaction of defeating Peng Liyun. Haha. Lu Qing shook his head. He didn't care about Fang Zhirong or the referee anymore. He turned around, walked up the stone steps with a smile, and left the arena in a carefree manner. P.S. Looking for monthly votes and recommendation votes? Chapter 536. Second round, Fang Zhirong wins. Hearing the referee's announcement and looking at Lu Qing's back, Fang Zhirong froze on the spot. Immediately, his blood rushed to his head. Embarrassed and angry, he clenched his fists so hard that his knuckles cracked. His injuries are not light. Those 2 blows should be internal explosion punch. In the live broadcast studio, the host, Lu Chang, said, half surprised and half seeking confirmation. However, he didn't hear the answer he expected, be it a yes or no. His surroundings were eerily quiet. What's going on? Lu Chang turned to look at his partner, only to see he Xiaowei in a daze. His lips were trembling, and his face was alternating between red and green. TSK, what does Fang Zhirong's injuries have to do with you? Why do you look like you've lost your entire family fortune? Lu Chang was confused and full of doubts. At this moment, a thought flashed through his mind. He remembered something from before and instantly understood the whole story. He Xiaowei had sworn that if Daidu won the championship, he would shave all the hair on his head. After taking 2 internal explosion punches from a weak inhuman, Fang Zhirong's injuries weren't something that could be healed in 3 to 5 days. When he fought in Daidu, he would be considered strong if he could still exert 50% of his strength. Looks like the casual poison healer has to be replaced by the carefully prepared kind. Lu Chang looked at He Xiaowei's head from head to toe. His lips were tightly pursed, and his cheeks and neck were trembling as he tried to hold back his laughter. Looks like I can probably look forward to it. What kind of scene will it be? I can't hold it in, ha. Returning to the seats, Lu Qing saw that everyone was still in a daze. What's wrong? Although he didn't expect to win this match, he shouldn't have waited so long. Kai Zhongming's mouth twitched. Have you ever considered us? What's the situation? Lu Qing was confused. If you say you lost, then you lost. Why are you laughing? Little Ming pointed at Fang Zhirong in the arena. Look at him. He's obviously holding back his anger. He'll definitely vent it on little Yangzi and me and torture us. Even if that guy is seriously injured and weakened in all aspects, he's still not someone a top 9th pin fighter can challenge. Lu Qing came to a realization. He solemnly extended his hand and patted Talker's shoulder. Don't worry, there's a referee. Kai Zhongming was so angry that he laughed. You might as well not have said anything. It made one's calves tremble even more. At this moment, Deng Yang put on an expression as if he was not afraid of death. He bumped fists with Lu Qing and the others one by one and walked towards the ring with his head held high. After watching him walk a few steps forward, Lu Qing took back his phone and shared his joy with Xianxia. Walking up the stone steps, Deng Yang stood in front of Fang Zhirong, who had just performed a force concentration to reduce the effects of his internal injuries. He saw his enemy's gloomy face and furious black eyes. He couldn't help but shudder. It was as if a venomous snake was staring at his throat and a sniper rifle was aiming at his temple. Was this the aura suppression of a professional 6th pin in the dance stage? Deng Yang tried his best to soothe his qi and blood, causing his skin to glow with a faint jade glow. Shizhou Island, quenching jade tactics. The referee did not give Fang Zhirong any more chances to calm down. He raised his right hand and swung it down. Begin. Fang Zhirong did not wipe the blood from his mouth and nose. He bent his back and slithered forward, strangely but quickly closing in on Deng Yang. Deng Yang was at a disadvantage in terms of body movement. He dodged a few times but still couldn't get rid of him. The distance between them was getting closer and closer. At this moment, Fang Zhirong withdrew his qi and blood and held it in his lower abdomen. Then it exploded and rushed out, expanding his legs. Crack. A spider web appeared under his feet. He pounced and closed in on Deng Yang, punching with his right fist. Deng Yang took a deep breath and expanded his temples. He raised his arms and made the most conservative parry. Suddenly, 2 muscles on Fang Zhirong's back bulged like butterflies. He pulled his spine to the side and changed his direction. He dodged to the side of his opponent in one step. Bam! He stretched out his left palm and opened his 5 fingers. They were shining with a dark light, like terrifying poisonous fangs. Deng Yang was used to this move and had lost his balance. Seeing that it was impossible to dodge, his face turned pale. He clenched his teeth, bulged his biceps, tightened his sleeves and took the initiative to swing diagonally. Rip! His sleeves split open, revealing his jade-like skin held by Fang Zhirong's 5 fingers. Deng Yang's expression turned ferocious before he felt weak and out of breath. A jade-like glow appeared on his face. He exerted strength in his legs, lowered his shoulders and leaned fiercely to the side. Bam! Fang Zhirong's qi and blood were still rolling. His body's reaction was delayed. He only had time to raise his right arm and block in front of his body. Deng Yang, who was counterattacking, hit him head-on. Fang Zhirong's arm trembled as he firmly resisted the blow. Fang Zhirong's qi and blood stagnated, and his internal injuries almost exploded. In the live broadcast room, he Xiaowei swayed as if the Iron Mountain Lean had actually hit him. Deng Yang's dark poison force was activated. His strength disappeared and he had difficulty breathing. He could only lower his head and gasp for air. The difference in their realms was too great, so the effect was naturally amazing. Fang Zhirong's face turned red, then green. He blocked with his right arm and his left fist was about to hit his opponent's lower abdomen. At this moment, a hand reached out and blocked his attack. The referee raised his other hand and exhaled. Round 3, Fang Zhirong wins. Phew. Fang Zhirong exhaled. He retracted his fist and stood up straight, unable to vent his anger. Deng Yang gasped for breath and finally recovered. After cupping his hands and bowing, he walked out of the arena with light footsteps. He had only taken a few steps when Wang Dali and the others came up to support him. Go to the emergency room and get some oxygen? Lu Qing suggested. Yeah. Deng Yang nodded slightly. He panted and smiled bitterly. I tried my best. Well done. Lu Qing praised from the bottom of his heart and extended his fist. Deng Yang raised his hand weakly and bumped it with Lu Cheng's. The ceremony was completed and he was sent to the emergency room. Kai Zongming, who was beside him, gasped and looked at Lu Cheng. Can I forfeit? What do you think? Lu Qing looked at him amused. I think you can. Kai Zongming didn't want to lose with words. He gritted his teeth and said with a twisted expression, Do you think I'm scared? What's there to be scared of? There's a referee anyway. He took a valiant and spirited stride forward, approaching the stone steps with an imposing manner. Just as he was about to ascend the arena, he calmed down his expression, hiding a smile, and was calm and composed. Yes, I'm in the live broadcast area. I can't show my unhandsome side. Kai Zongming trembled when he came to the center of the arena and was stared at by Fang Zhirong. He hurriedly calmed his mind and comforted himself by muttering to himself, Just a dead man, just a dead man? Fang Zhirong vaguely heard what he said. The veins on his forehead bulged and he almost couldn't stabilize his injury. The referee was almost amused. He shook his head and raised his hand. Begin. Crack. Fang Zhirong made a forced concentration right at the start of the match. He pushed off the arena with both feet and lunged at Kai Zongming at lightning speed. His vision blurred and his enemy was already close. Kai Zongming tensed up and followed his plan. He braced his feet and raised his arms to block. His 2 hands grabbed each other's cuffs in a weird posture. Bam! Fang Zhirong opened his 5 fingers and was about to grab his enemy's forearm. At this moment, 2 tearing sounds were heard. Kai Zongming tore off his sleeves and used the fabric of his clothes as a flag. He expanded his airflow and wrapped it around Fang Zhirong's palm. He countered with softness. Then he flicked his elbow and threw his forearm at his opponent's face. He was ready to launch a second attack with his knuckles. Fang Zhirong's face darkened. He pulled his shoulder and lifted his other arm, staining the edge of his palm with a touch of green. Bam! He flipped his palm and hit his enemy's bare arm. In an instant, Kai Zongming felt the pain of thousands of arrows piercing his heart, knives scraping his bones and needles stabbing his fingers. He instinctively hugged his arm and screamed. Cold sweat beaded on his forehead. His face was pale and he looked like he was about to faint. The 27th move of the Plague Sect, Scorpion Tail Needle. This was a unique skill that magnified pain. Fang Zhirong took the opportunity to raise his waist and knee forward. The referee raised his leg in time and blocked the attack. He raised his right hand and announced, Round 4, Fang Zhirong wins. Final result, Shanbei University Martial Arts Club wins. Fang Zhirong took a deep breath and calmed down a little. He raised his hands and applauded to the audience who had supported him. Kai Zongming was in a daze. He walked down the arena in a daze. Every step he took seemed to be extremely painful and drained of all his strength. When Lu Cheng and Wang Dali supported him, he recovered and felt the pain begin to subside. He spoke for the first time, F***CK. It F***King hurts. I'm relieved that you're alive and kicking. Lu Cheng chuckled and asked casually, how did you feel just now? Feel? I'm F***King doubting my life. Little Ming replied with a rich expression. The first round of the semi-finals was over. Songqing University was eliminated. Shanbei University advanced to the finals for the fourth time in 4 years. Lu Cheng and the others were mentally prepared for failure. They weren't too sad, but they felt a little disappointed and had mixed feelings. After watching Ren Li show her invincible power and lead the Capital College Martial Arts Club to the finals, Songqing University's group took the bus back to the hotel. As soon as they entered the lobby, Lu Cheng saw a middle-aged man in a suit walking towards them with a smile on his face. He wore gold-rimmed glasses and had an elegant temperament. He introduced himself, I'm the representative of the Longhu Club. Chapter 537. I'm the representative of Longhu Club. Hearing this, Kai Zongming and the rest looked at each other excitedly. They patted Lu Cheng on the shoulder and walked past him to the elevator. Hello. Lu Cheng locked his phone and nodded with a smile. Hello, my surname is Zhang. Today, I'm mainly here to discuss the general conditions and our arrangements for the future. If you feel that there are no problems, we will draft a contract and send it to you in a few days. Mr. Zhang pointed to the cafe next to the lobby. Let's sit and talk. Sure. Lu Cheng didn't refuse. After ordering a drink, Mr. Zhang crossed his fingers and placed them in front of his chest. He smiled and said, judging from your reaction, you really won't be returning to Wuyue Club. I'm relieved. Longhu Club's initial plan is to offer you a 5-year contract with a yearly salary of 10 million. 10 million? Lu Cheng was surprised. According to the information published online, a veteran 4th Pin Mighty One's annual salary was only 6 to 7 million. The difference wasn't big for foreign grandmasters of martial arts of the same level. Money in China was still very valuable. Mr. Zhang chuckled and said, Dragon King suggested that you be treated as a quasi-physical invulnerability expert. This is only your salary and doesn't include bonuses or benefits. If you don't mind, I'll talk about the subsequent terms. I'm very satisfied, Lu Cheng replied with a smile. He didn't bargain. This was much better than what he had expected. Moreover, Dragon King had fought hard for it. If he asked for more, he would be too greedy. Mr. Zhang took a sip of his black coffee. He pushed his glasses and said, the main source of bonuses is from winning. For every match you win, depending on the importance of the match, you'll get a bonus of 100,000 to 200,000. In addition, you'll get a share of the club's final ranking. He picked the important points and said, the benefits will be based on the income from the club's related industries. If you're not a physical invulnerability expert, it won't be much. After you make the big leap, your annual salary and bonuses will be just pocket money. Of course, if you want to get more, you'll have to work for the club. This isn't mandatory. I have no problem with the general terms. When the time comes, I'll get a lawyer to take a look. Lu Cheng nodded in agreement. That's what you should do. Mr. Zhang smiled and talked about other agreements. When he reached a preliminary agreement with Lu Cheng, he moved on to the next arrangement. Is it okay to report before July? No. Lu Cheng shook his head. With your current realm and strength, it would be very difficult for you to participate in the top professional competitions. It's also quite risky. We'll give you some time to digest the Dan stage unique skill of the Fire Sect. We'll register you for the preliminaries of the Battle of the Kings in mid-August. After that, we'll make similar arrangements. We'll strive to let you have a high-level battle every week. Next year, in February or March, if you agree, I will let you experience it for yourself in a 2nd or 3rd tier professional team that you have a good relationship with. If there is a serious injury, the club will take care of the first 3 months. After that, the insurance company will take care of the rest. You can rest assured. In short, the goal is for you to make the great leap and achieve physical invulnerability within 3 years. By the way, I forgot to mention that we have the priority to renew the contract. We can also buy out the contract. Mr. Zhang emphasized his words with his hand gestures to show his confidence in Lu Cheng. The 4-tier professional competitions in China started at the end of February or the beginning of March and ended at the end of December or the beginning of January every year. The central government would have 2 long breaks, as well as a gap to make way for the 5 major title competitions. Among the 5 major title competitions, The Battle of the Kings would be held from mid-August to early September every year. In the first 2 weeks of December, there would be an elimination battle to determine the challenger of the previous king. In March or April of the following year, the winner of 2 out of 3 rounds would be the new king. The title competitions of the Warrior Sage, Supreme Class, Master and Kirin had similar arrangements. They would take advantage of the gaps in the professional competitions. The only difference was that each competition format was slightly different. For example, the top 3 of the Supreme Class would be eliminated in an elimination battle. They would form a 4-man round-robin with the previous champion. They would face off against each other once, and the one with the best record would win the title. If there was a tie, there would be a tiebreaker. After Lu Qing asked for a few details and expressed his opinion, the preliminary discussion ended happily. Mr. Zhang drank the last mouthful of black coffee and extended his hand with a smile. Then I'll go back and draft the contract. Congratulations on joining the Longhu Club. We're on the same side from now on. Lu Qing extended his hand and shook the other party's hand. Goodbye. Rest early. Mr. Zhang waved his hand and left with a face full of joy. Watching his back disappear at the entrance of the cafe, Lu Qing sat down again. Looking at the dimly lit environment, listening to the gentle and melodious music, he drank a mouthful of slightly sour lemon water to quench his thirst. He suddenly realized that a journey in his life had come to an end, and a new adventure was about to begin. He had always known that he would leave school after the national championship and enter society after his 3rd-year exams. However, knowing clearly and feeling clearly were 2 completely different concepts. Now that things had come to a head, the footsteps of the future were stepping on his heart 1 step at a time. It was anticipation, hope, sadness, and melancholy. I'm leaving the martial arts club and the relatively simple school. What will the adult world, the world of professional martial arts, be like? After July, I won't be able to travel to and from America as frequently as I did this year, let alone stay for 10 days to half a month. I might only be able to go once every 2 or 3 months, and I can only stay for 3 to 5 days each time. Brother-in-law was right when he said that the frivolous days of youth would end as soon as he matured. The melody of the music entered his ears. Wearing a black t-shirt, Lu Qing sat there with a cup in his hand. He didn't move for a long time, as if he had become a shadow in the dim light. 2 days later, he watched the final match between Shanbei and Capital. Ren Li used the Kong Tong swordsmanship, which was based on the unique skills of the Wind Sect, supplemented by hidden scent, and narrowly defeated Peng Liyun, who had gone through a fierce battle and was not in his best condition. Fang Zhirong, who had not recovered from his internal injuries and was ravaged by Ren Li, finally lost to Jiang Kongchan. Of course, Lu Qing didn't let Jiang Kongchan off easily. The influence of the dark poison force had greatly reduced Jiang Kongchan's strength, so he couldn't win by himself. In the end, Jiang Jingfeng, who didn't show his strength, defeated Bernhard, drawing a perfect end to the hard work of the Capital Academy in the past few years. After this year, Peng Liyun, Ren Li, Jiang Jingfeng, Xing Jingjing, and Piao Yuan all graduated. Lu Qing, Li Xiaoyuan, and Fang Zhirong entered professional competitions in advance. The university martial arts circle fell back to the level it was 2 years ago. It was foreseeable that there would be no such glorious and brilliant situation in the future. He Xiaowei, who was bald, commented, "The golden age of the university martial arts circle has come to an end. P.S. I think it's better to put the following content in a chapter, so this chapter has fewer words." Well, this is the last chapter of the 3rd book. Chapter 538. At the end of June, there were fewer and fewer students in the campus of Songqing University. In the season of summer, when the fruits on the branches were full, there was a sense of desolation in the air. Dormitory 302, Unit 2, Building 7. Lu Qing opened the closet and looked at some t-shirts, pants and shirts in a mess. He was a little confused. These were the leftovers from Ko Qian's long-distance selection. At his feet, the 28-inch suitcase was full. The cardboard boxes were sealed with tape and pasted with express deliveries, waiting to be sent out. If you don't want your old clothes, you can take them to Building 12. A few seniors seemed to be organizing a donation drive. Zhao Chang tidied up his luggage and glanced at Lu Qing. "Not bad. I'll go there tomorrow." Lu Qing closed the closet door and turned around. He looked at Chang, who had been the head of the dormitory for 3 years. "When are you coming back?" "Tomorrow afternoon. I'll go to Songqing Normal University first." Zhao Chang pushed his black-rimmed glasses shyly and asked, "What about you?" "My flight is at noon the day after tomorrow." Lu Qing smiled and looked around. He invited, "Let's get together tonight?" "Sure." Zhao Chang agreed readily. Zhou Zhigao, who was showing off his muscles, stopped and laughed. I was waiting for you to say that. Zhang Jingye, the model worker, looked away from the lines of code on the computer screen and picked up his phone. Okay, I'll tell Wu Qian first. Then I'll ask next door. Lu Qing walked out of the small dormitory and stood in front of Talker's door. He bent his fingers and knocked twice on the open wooden door. Let's have dinner together tonight? Lu Qing smiled when he got the look back. Kai Zongming clicked his tongue. I thought you forgot about the farewell dinner. I was wondering if I should remind you that the supreme seafood barbecue restaurant in the gourmet city is very good. Qin Imo put on his gold-rimmed glasses and put his palms together. I didn't go home today. I didn't go out to fool around. I was waiting for you to treat me. Don't worry, I won't rush to pay the bill. No problem. Mao Yuanxing, who had brought his girlfriend since he entered the university and slept in the dormitory all year round, was lying on the bed. He raised his phone to show that he had gotten the approval from the leader. He was not tall, but he was very bookish. God Tangwen also raised his head. When are we leaving? Hey, you're not playing games in the dorm anymore? Lu Qing blurted out, amused. This guy always asked little Ming to bring food for him. I mainly play mobile games now. Isn't it the same wherever I go? Tangwen answered matter-of-factly. That makes a lot of sense. I'm actually speechless. Lu Qing could only take out his phone and look at the lit screen. Let's wait for another half an hour before leaving. According to Talker's suggestion, let's go to the Supreme Seafood Barbecue Restaurant in the Gourmet City. Compared to 3 years ago when they had just arrived, the new campus of Songqing University was no longer so desolate. There was a residential area, a gourmet city, and a few bustling streets. Half an hour later, after walking for more than 20 minutes, everyone from Dorm 302 arrived at the food city. They found the barbecue shop that Kai Zongming had mentioned and ordered a lot of things, including a few cartons of beer. We'll drink. You and Talker can drink as you please. Qin Imo brushed his hair back and changed from a gentle to a forthright manner. I'll be the wine commander. You look like you're used to hanging out in nightclubs. Kai Zongming didn't hold back. He took a bottle of Dongrui beer and said, I'll break my rule today. I can't waste Cheng's treat. Just tell me if you want a drink. You don't have to use me as an excuse. Lu Qing poured himself a cup of buckwheat tea, stood up, looked around, and said with some emotion, I won't say anything about being on the same boat for 100 years. Anyway, it's a rare fate for all of us to be in the same dorm and spend time together for 3 years. I'll probably come back once or twice in my senior year for my dissertation and graduation. Let me use this tea as a substitute for wine to toast to all of you, to the past 3 years, and to the tale of youth that has passed away. You're getting better at talking, aren't you? Kai Zongming stood up with a cup full of beer and teased him. Isn't that obvious? I've been thinking about this for days. I've even revised the draft several times. Lu Qing said self-deprecatingly as he clinked glasses with Zhao Chang and the others. To our university life. He shouted in a low voice with mixed feelings. He raised the cup and gulped down the tea. Kai Zongming didn't interrupt and finished the beer in his cup with Qin Imo and the others. After sitting down again, Lu Qing peeled off the shell and ate a palm-sized grilled mantis prawn. He refilled his cup and looked at Zhao Chang opposite him. Chang, your postgraduate recommendation should be confirmed, right? Not yet. I'll have to wait until next semester. Zhao Chang looked smug. But I'm one of the top few. Ching, if you come back to Songqing in the next 3 or 4 years, feel free to look for me. I should be here. He picked up the beer bottle and filled his cup. He sighed and laughed. I think I can post a post with the title, My Amazing Roommate. When he entered school, he was neither tall nor strong and loved to sleep. In the end, he became an inhuman mighty one and a heavenly son of the era. Here, let's toast to you. Humans really have to consider the course of history and fate. After finishing his cup, Lu Qing smiled and asked Zhang Jingye, model worker, the on-campus enrollment is coming in the second half of the year. You don't seem to be taking the postgraduate entrance exam. What are your plans? Plans? I plan to stay in Songqing. You know, I'm from the Northwest. We study software. We have to stay in Beijing, Huahai, Huaqing, Moshang, Gaofen, and Songqing to develop. I've thought about it. It'll be tough at the beginning. It doesn't matter if I work overtime as long as I can learn something. Zhang Jingye had thought about his future and answered sincerely, Qing, remember to look for me when you come back to Songqing. At this moment, Qin Mo laughed involuntarily. Model worker, I suddenly thought of a joke. In our line of work, the third-rate people write the code, the second-rate people do the architecture, and the first-rate people, the first-rate people do the PowerPoint. Everyone burst into laughter. When they calmed down, Kai Zongming went straight to the point and asked, "Model worker, be honest. Is Wu Qian a local of Songqing?" "No, but she wants to stay in Songqing." Zhang Jingya answered, a little embarrassed. "That's even more worth a toast." Lu Qing laughed and picked up his cup. They all love their wives. Watching them gulp down their beer, Qiu Zhigao took the initiative to say, "I don't want to take the postgraduate entrance exam either. I plan to leave as soon as I get a good job, even a big city is fine." After saying a few words, he looked at Lu Cheng and sighed. "I'm a little regretful. If I had joined the special training with you in the first year, maybe everything would be different. Now he was neither high nor low, we're still young. As long as we have the heart and are willing to work hard, things will get better sooner or later." Lu Cheng raised his cup and comforted him. Old Qiu didn't say more and finished the beer in his cup. In the first few years of college, some people were high-spirited while others were depressed. Lu Cheng turned to look at Tang Wen. He didn't want to expose other people's scars. He smiled and said, "God, the esports game industry is so popular now. When you make a lot of money in the future, don't forget us." Tang Wen raised his cup and said shyly, "Let's talk about it after I pass the final exam and get enough credits. Otherwise you won't see me again. My dad will beat me to death." They clinked their cups and teased each other. Lu Cheng looked at Mao Yuanxing and said, "When it comes to the time spent in the dormitory, I'm the last and you're the second last. Let's stop talking and have a toast. What do you think of Qin Mo?" Mao Yuanxing asked wittily. After another burst of laughter, Qin Mo stood up and said, "I admit it. I agree. Come on, the three of us who don't go home at night will drink a bottle. Qing, you can do whatever you want." After drinking, Lu Cheng glanced at little Ming with a smile. "Talker, we don't have to be so polite, right?" "Yes, you don't have to be so polite. Lend me your card," Kai Zongming said with disdain. After a round of drinking, they shifted their focus to the barbecue and talked about the interesting things in the past 3 years. For example, Tang Wen forgot the time of the exam, and Lu Qing only showed up in the dormitory before going to bed and chatting for a while. Once the conversation started, the past flew into their minds. A few of them were dead drunk. It wasn't clear if they were sending Lu Qing off or commemorating the 3 years of their youth that they had lost. "Qing, when you become a physical invulnerability expert, I will definitely tell the people around me that this is my roommate, this is my bro." I watched him become stronger step by step. Towards the end, old Qiu stuttered and mumbled. Then he was helped into the dormitory by Zhao Chang, whose face was flushed with blood. The other drunkards were in high spirits and wanted to play a game online. The living room was deserted. Only Lu Cheng and Kai Zongming were standing there. "Shall we go out for a walk and get some fresh air?" Little Ming suggested. "Sure." Lu Cheng put his hands in his pockets and answered calmly. Kai Zongming turned and walked into the dormitory. He took out 2 small bottles of Red Star Erguotu and said self-deprecatingly, "Today, let me indulge in some alcohol." After leaving the dormitory, they walked through the commercial street and came to the other end of the long bridge. The two went down to the lakeside and found a quiet place. Seeing the wooden bench, Lu Cheng subconsciously wanted to wipe it clean before sitting down. However, he quickly realized that he didn't bring any paper towels with him. So, he shook his head and smiled. He sat down just like that. Kai Zongming sat down beside him. He twisted open the bottle cap and took a sip. He chuckled and said, "Cheng, do you know what my impression of you was when I first saw you?" Without waiting for Lu Cheng to speak, he answered his own question. This guy was so uncouth. His hair looked like it was made when he slept without drying it. It was so unique. Not to mention his clothes and pants. What the hell? Damn, you finally told the truth. Lu Cheng couldn't help but laugh. Kai Zongming took another sip of Erguotu and said, "When you said you wanted to pursue Yanzhika, although I encouraged you and taught you skills, I didn't think highly of you at all. It was the same with practicing martial arts. I thought you were wasting your time." He looked at the rippling surface of the lake and said with a sense of emptiness, "In the end, you really did create a miracle. The Longhu Club. That's the Longhu Club. When you were in your first year, you always talked about how the Dragon King was your idol and wanted to watch the Longhu Club's matches. In the end, you just joined them. It's like you're in a TV series." Kai Zongming didn't turn his head. His tone became deep and somewhat erratic. "Cheng, you must replace us and fulfill our martial arts dreams. You must become a mighty one with physical invulnerability." "What do you mean by replace you?" Lu Cheng asked. Kai Zongming chuckled and his voice became deeper and deeper. "I know very well that even if I can reach the Dan stage in my senior year, I can only fight in the 4th level preliminaries or prepare for the 3rd level North-South regional competition after graduation. In this lifetime, it's almost impossible for me to reach the inhuman stage, let alone physical invulnerability. After 5 years of hard work, I can get a professional 7th pin certificate in 10 years. That's the best development. Maybe I can only understand withdraw when I'm 30? He turned his head and shook his head with dark eyes. Cheng, this is called living, not dreaming. He grabbed the bottle and took another sip. He squeezed out a smile and said, and I don't like the life of having to fight every week. Not at all. But you're eager to fight every time. You're unusually excited every time we have a conversation. Lu Qing wanted to refute, but he was at a loss for words. Kai Zongming drank another sip of sorghum wine. He leaned back and leaned against the back of the chair. He looked at the starry sky and said, I went home on the 1st of May. I realized that my dad has aged by almost 10 years. He didn't ask me what job I want in my senior year, but I think I'm a man. Lu Qing was stunned at first but soon understood. An inexplicable and intense sadness welled up in him. Kai Zongming turned his head and looked at him. He said with a cheeky smile, this might be a good thing. Didn't you always say that you can understand, withdraw, after a while? I'll go home and rest for a few years. Maybe I'll be able to master some divine skills. At this moment he saw the change in Lu Cheng's expression. He said in a hoarse voice, hey, why are you so jealous? I'm not jealous. Why are you jealous? I'm not jealous. Why are you jealous? I'm not King crying. Lu Qing shouted in a hoarse voice. Kai Zongming turned his head and looked at the lake. He announced to himself, I'm not King crying either. He took a deep breath and picked up the bottle. He looked at Lu Qing and said with sparkling eyes, Qing, you have to go on well. You have to go on well? Lu Qing choked. He picked up another bottle of sorghum wine, unscrewed the cap and clinked it with Kai Zongming's. Then he raised his head and poured it into his mouth. That strange yet familiar feeling emerged. It was choking and pungent. A day later in the early morning, Lu Qing put away his stance and exhaled. He didn't leave the lake immediately. Instead, he walked in another direction along the path that was so familiar to him that it seemed to be carved into his bones. That was the place where he picked up the black carp. That was the starting point where he exhausted the enemy in his first real battle. That was the street lamp that witnessed his first kiss with Ku. That was the observation deck that he walked past every time he went on a date. After circling the lake, Lu Qing returned to the long bridge and walked to the martial arts arena. He used the bathroom in the locker room to wash off the sweat from the training. After changing his clothes and putting on his glasses, he cleaned up the things in the locker and locked it again. He left the key in the lock. Coming out of the locker room, Lu Qing saw that Deng Yang, He Zi, and Wang Dali were still focused on the special training and didn't notice him. He smiled and watched for a while. Then he turned around and walked into the honor room. Standing in front of the Feitian Cup, the symbol of last year's national champion, he was stunned for dozens of seconds. Retracting his gaze, Lu Qing slowly looked around, taking in every scene. Only then did he leave the martial arts arena step by step, not bothering He Zi and the others. Following the path that he had walked countless times, he used his feet to remeasure the teaching building, the long bridge, the square, and the commercial street. He entered the 7th dormitory, climbed the stairs of the 2nd unit, and returned to the dormitory. Zhao Chang had left the school yesterday. Qiu Zhigao and Zhang Jingye were nowhere to be found. His desk was messy, and his luggage and suitcase were randomly placed. Lu Qing put his laptop into his backpack and finished the final preparations. He took a picture of Xianxia and sent her a message. Then he put on his backpack, pulled the box and walked to the door. When he was about to go out, he suddenly looked back and swept his eyes over the wooden desk, the bed that Zhao Chang always neatly made, the back of Qiu Zhigao's chair that was slightly burnt, and Zhang Jingye's half-open wardrobe. Looking around, Lu Qing silently left the room. He closed the door and closed the room full of memories. The living room outside was empty and quiet. He took a deep look and suddenly turned around. Dragging his suitcase, he left the dormitory and went down the stairs. After a few steps, Lu Qing looked back again and saw the mottled door and the dim 302 sign. 3 years had passed and they had aged a lot. Lu Qing exhaled and didn't stop. He carried his suitcase and walked down the stairs. He walked all the way. His feet were replaced by the school bus was replaced by a taxi, and the taxi was replaced by his feet. Finally he boarded the plane and sat by the window. After chatting with Xianxia for a while, Lu Qing turned off his phone and felt that the flight had taken off. After a short wait and a quick sprint, the iron bird flew up and rushed into the blue sky. Lu Qing turned his head and saw the city become smaller in his eyes. He saw several landmark buildings. That was the Ocean Aquarium, that was the Songqing Martial Arts Stadium, that was the building with the delicious chiffon cake. That was the mall where he bought the ring for the first time. These gradually became smaller. The eye-catching Zhaoshan Lake and Weishui Lake were reflected in Lu Cheng's eyes, making him see illusions and reality. That was the lakeside where the white-haired old man was said to be studied. That was the Songqing University Martial Arts Stadium where his brother-in-law coldly showed up. That was the dormitory where he and Taka were sarcastic. That was the canteen shared with Ku. That was the locker room where everyone was sad and painful. That was the grandstand where they shouted, "Come again." That was the honor room where hands overlapped each other and pushed the Feitian cup into the cabinet. That was the library where he jumped off the building with a girl in his arms. That was Valentine's Day when the moonlight shone and the fireworks were in full bloom. All of these quickly became smaller and ended without a trace. The flight soared high in the sky. Lu Qing slowly retracted his gaze and leaned back in his chair. He closed his eyes and silently said the words that he had been suppressing in his heart, "Goodbye, Songqing." End of part. Chapter 539. It was the end of June in Huaqing, hot and humid. Walking in the city felt like walking in a steamer, which was extremely uncomfortable. Although Lu Qing could use ice force to dispel the heat, he couldn't change the humidity of the surrounding air. His skin felt sticky and his pores couldn't breathe properly. He couldn't wait to find a place to take a cold shower. A long-haired girl in a white shirt, light gray suit, and sandals turned around and introduced, "This place is designed with one apartment per staircase, so privacy is well protected. Also, it's not far from our Longhu Club. It's about a 20-minute drive." Her name was Amin, and she was a staff member sent by the Longhu Club to welcome Lu Qing at the airport. Her skin had a healthy luster, her facial features were gentle and pretty, and the corners of her eyes were naturally curved. Not bad. Lu Qing carried his luggage and dragged his suitcase. He looked around, nodded slightly and followed Amin into the staircase. He felt a cool breeze. Amin pressed the button for the 6th floor and looked at the famous heavenly son of the era with a gentle smile. "The club is responsible for the utilities and other expenses. Mr. Lu, you don't have to worry about it. If you encounter any problems, you can look for the property management. If they can't solve it, give me a call." As they spoke, the elevator stopped at the 6th floor. The area outside the door wasn't small. There were sofas, round tables, bonsai and other things like a waiting room. The interior design of the house was cold and hard, with black, gray and silver as the main colors, giving it a modern industrial vibe. It was more than 200 square meters, with 4 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, a dining room, a living room and a clean and tidy kitchen. The layout was quite spacious and didn't feel cramped at all. "I live alone. There's no need to make it so big, right?" Lu Qing laughed out loud. He had originally thought that it was just a 2-bedroom apartment of about 80 square meters. Amin smiled faintly. "Everyone is the same. You can't make it special." "Everyone?" Lu Qing's heart skipped a beat and he asked with interest. "It's the inhuman mighty ones in the club's reserve team." Amin's eyes twinkled and she replied with a friendly attitude. "But there aren't many who still live in this area. Some bought their own houses and moved out. Some are in other cities, following other teams, competing in the 2nd or 3rd level professional competitions. Some are older and have switched to management, being in charge of businesses related to the club." "Oh, Mr. Lu, do you know how to drive?" "Yes, but I don't have a license." Lu Qing didn't try to hide it. "Then there will be a driver coming to pick you up tomorrow morning at 8:15 a.m. at the southeast gate. I will ask him to contact you in advance." Amin walked to the window and pointed at the artificial garden outside. "There's a specially partitioned hidden area. You don't have to run too far for your morning exercise. The facilities here are quite complete." Lu Qing exclaimed in satisfaction. As the top martial arts force in the country, how could the club not know your needs? These are all carefully selected. Amin smiled and extended her right hand. "Let's get to know each other again. Amin, I graduated 2 years ago and am a member of the Longhu Club's assistant team. You can only have a personal assistant after you reach physical invulnerability. As for now, the assistant team is in charge of everything." Lu Qing politely reached out and shook her hand gently. "In other words, I belong to the club's reserve team?" "That's right. Excluding you, there are currently 5 powerhouses in the reserve team. 2 of them live in the Sky Capital Garden. You'll be able to see them tomorrow morning," Amin answered honestly. 5 Inhumans? This doesn't include those who have gone to other teams for actual combat training or those who are old and have no hope of reaching physical invulnerability. The number of inhumans in the Longhu Club is terrifying. No wonder the Ice God sect, Haishi sect, and others formed the Wiwa Club to barely contend with them. Lu Qing was speechless. Amin continued to introduce other situations until she received a message on her phone. She took a look and exclaimed softly, "It's so late, the train is about to stop." So is the bus. It's all that plane's fault for being delayed for so many hours. She looked up again and tried her best to smile naturally. "Mr. Lu, it's getting late. You should get some rest. If there's anything you can ask me on WeChat or over the phone." "All right." Lu Qing couldn't wait for her to leave. Amin left behind her keys, electronic card, and other items. She waved and walked towards the door. Just as she was about to open the door, she suddenly remembered something. She turned around and asked, "Mr. Lu, will we arrange for cleaning staff to come here regularly to clean and tidy up? How many days do you want them to come here? What's the schedule?" "Once every 2 days, even when I'm not around," Lu Qing said after some consideration. "Got it?" Amin changed into her sandals and said goodbye with a smile. She closed the door. After exiting the elevator, her reserved footsteps gradually quickened. In the end, she was running like the wind. Finally, she caught the last train and found her seat. Amin heaved a long sigh of relief. Her whole body relaxed. However, after she bent down and massaged her aching calves, she suddenly felt a surge of sadness. During work, there were cars and the people she interacted with were all experts with extremely high incomes. It was as though she was living in the glamorous upper class. After work, she was no longer Assistant Amin. She squeezed into the subway, ate fast food and shared a room with others. She lived in a small space with only a bed, a table and a cupboard. The Longhu Club offered a decent salary for an ordinary assistant. However, in a big city, all she could do was survive and slowly earn money. When will this kind of life end? In a spacious room, Lu Qing recorded the surroundings with his phone and made a live broadcast for his wife. "How is it? Not bad, right?" he asked with a little pride. On the other side of the screen, Xianxia, dressed in a white training suit, put down the milk. She pursed her lips and smiled. "The layout is okay. It's just that the decoration style is too cold. When you come over during winter break, we'll go look for a house. In the next 5 or 10 years, we'll most likely be living in Huaqing. The sooner we buy it, the better. We'll have our own home sooner," Lu Qing said, half tempting and half letting his imagination run wild. "Why do you have to wait for me to buy?" Xianxia blinked, her dimples showing. "This kind of thing has to be decided by the head of the household," Lu Qing answered without hesitation. This was a lesson learned from the mistakes of others. In the end, his father made the final decision on the house. His mother was generally satisfied with it. However, nothing is perfect. Every time this happened, his father would be nagged. On the other hand, the decoration basically reflected his mother's intentions. Although she regretted it later on, she couldn't find anyone to complain to. She could only say a few words occasionally. Xianxia didn't understand this roundabout way of talking. She listened with a smile and nodded seriously. "I don't trust your aesthetic standards." "What's wrong with my aesthetic standards? My little fairy is so pretty." Lu Qing took advantage of the opportunity and started flirting with her skillfully. "You're just a fool." Xianxia couldn't help but smile and turn her head to look to the side. "Then cuckoo, are you considered a wise man who makes mistakes?" Lu Qing teased her with a smile. Xianxia looked around and saw that Aunt Du had gone to the garage. She raised her chin and refused to play along. "No way. My brother Qing is so awesome. I have good taste. A wise man like me won't make a mistake." Lu Qing listened with a smile. After flirting with her for a while, he changed the topic and said, "I heard from the assistant that the club specially assigned a chef to make Xing province dishes for me. In the future, I can eat there morning, afternoon and night. I won't have to work so hard when I come back." "Don't you like to cook?" Xianxia covered her mouth and snickered. "What I like to do is to cook with my little fairy." Lu Qing chuckled. "If I'm alone, it takes me 2 hours to cook, half an hour to wash the dishes and 10 minutes to eat. What a waste." "That's true." Xianxia nodded in agreement. Before she could finish, she rolled her eyes and blurted out, "You eat so much. How can 10 minutes be enough? You liar." Lu Qing was speechless for a moment. After a long time he replied, "I'm just giving an example. Understand the spirit, understand the spirit." At this moment, Aunt Du came in and urged the girl to change. Xianxia hurriedly drank the last mouthful of milk and ended the video call. She walked up to the second floor with light steps. She didn't have class in the morning, but she had to go to the classroom at 10 to discuss the group report. Lu Qing called his mother and reported the situation of his residence. After that, he washed up and lay on the bed. I'm in Huaqing. Before he went to bed, he sent a message to Fatty Jiang. This guy is studying in Huaqing University in Guangnan. I'm back in Xiaoshan. Jiang Fei replied with a cunning smile. Just kidding. I'm waiting for you to treat me to a good meal. When? I'm leaving the day after tomorrow. Let's talk about it tomorrow. I haven't reported yet, so I'm not sure about the club's arrangements. Lu Qing didn't promise casually. After ending the chat and saying goodnight to Xianxia, he locked the phone screen and let the master bedroom fall into darkness. There was silence everywhere. A faint light shone in from the window, bringing peace and loneliness. It wasn't that Lu Qing hadn't been to foreign lands before, but except for Xiaoshan and Songqing, he knew clearly that they were only temporary stays and he would leave soon. This time he would take root here, germinate here and grow here. In the next 5, 10 or 20 years he would belong to this city. He lacked a sense of belonging and the future was long. Lu Qing felt inexplicably sentimental and melancholy. His heart was filled with an unreal feeling. Is this my hometown for the rest of my life? He had a similar feeling when he first arrived in Songqing, but there was more than one person in the dormitory. The liveliness soon diluted everything. Now he was alone. Alone in a foreign land as a stranger. The next morning, Lu Qing woke up on time and went to the specially partitioned field. He found a relatively secluded place to train. At 8:10 a.m., he put on an ordinary backpack and went to the southeast gate of Sky Capital Garden. He saw the silver-gray MPV that came to pick him up. He saw Amen waiting at the door with obvious eye bags. The MPV was very spacious. 2 rows of seats were placed opposite each other, separated by a small refrigerator, a bar, and a table. A man and a woman were sitting opposite him. Their eyes swept over Lu Qing as if they were real. Let me introduce you. From now on, you will be teammates in the reserve team. Amen said with a bright smile. Chapter 540. Amen had put on light makeup and wore a one-piece dress. Her professional demeanor exuded a sense of freshness and elegance. After sitting beside Lu Qing, she pointed at the man opposite her and said, Mr. Xuanhuan, senior 4th pin. Sitting there, Xuanhuan looked like half a mountain. His loose shirt was stretched tight by his muscles. However, his naturally round face added a lot of gentleness to his tough temperament. Following which, Amen looked at the remaining woman with a smile. Ms. Lu Xiaofei, newly promoted 4th pin expert this year. Lu Xiaofei wore a loose dark t-shirt. Her facial features weren't outstanding, but her eyes were full of heroic spirit. She had a charm that was different from other women. She looked younger than Xuanhuan, about 24 or 25 years old. Hello. After the introduction, Lu Qing greeted them politely. Just as Amen was about to introduce Lu Qing's identity, Xuanhuan smiled and said, There's no need for introductions. We all know who you are. We aren't old antiques who don't know how to surf the internet. How can we not know the heavenly son of the era? As he spoke, he stood up and extended his right hand to Lu Qing. I graduated from a martial arts school and spent a few years in the military. I just joined the club not long ago. Xianhu and the military indeed have a close relationship. Lu Qing left his seat thoughtfully and shook hands with Xuanhuan. He felt that Xuanhuan's calluses were as thick as steel. Lu Xiaofei sat steadily, cupped her fist and bowed. I rose from Xianhu's beginner martial arts school. You probably haven't heard of me. We will be teammates in the future. Lu Qing obviously couldn't say that he hadn't heard of her before, so he could only say this out of courtesy. He only knew of one inhuman in Xianhu Club, the top 4th pin Tu Zheng. Tu Zheng could exchange more than 10 moves with a physical invulnerability mighty one. When Xianhu Club was in a predicament where 2 or 3 main players were injured and couldn't fight, he would act as a firefighter. Hence, Lu Qing had seen a few of his matches. The traffic jam from Sky Capital Garden to Xianhu Club in the suburbs wasn't too bad. After 23 minutes, the car arrived at its destination. Throughout the entire process, Xuanhuan and Lu Xiaofei were polite and distant. They only briefly talked about the situation of the reserve team. Lu Qing wasn't surprised by this. It wasn't easy to meet someone like Little Ming who was so friendly with others. Amen, on the other hand, tried her best to liven up the atmosphere and shared some unimportant gossip. The main building of the Xianhu Club was only 5 stories high, but it occupied an extremely large area, almost as big as 10 martial arts stadiums combined. There were 2 horizontal plaques on both sides of the entrance, with the words Dragon Coiling on a black background and Tiger Crouching on the other. Other than that, there were no other decorations. Looking at it from afar, one could vaguely see the sparkling lake in the distance. Lu Qing had just gotten out of the car, and before he could speak to Amen, Xuanhuan, and Lu Xiaofei, he saw a familiar figure rushing in from the door. It was Mr. Zhang, who wasn't wearing a suit and was only wearing a shirt. The Mr. Zhang who had finalized the terms of the contract with Lu Qing. I found out later that his name is Zhang Shouyin. Seeing an old friend in a foreign land put Lu Qing's mood at ease. He waved with a smile. You're finally here. Follow me in first. Empress Luo wants to see you. Zhang Shouyin pushed his gold-rimmed spectacles. He didn't have the time to exchange pleasantries with Xuanhuan and the rest. He gestured for Lu Qing to follow him as he turned and walked towards the door. Empress Luo, Ning Zitong? The thought flashed through Lu Qing's mind. He quickened his pace and caught up with Zhang Shouyin in the blink of an eye. They entered through the door side by side. Empress Luo Ning Zitong was 42 years old this year. In her prime she had held 2 titles. Due to her ghostly movements, she was revered as the Ghost King. She didn't like this title, so she named herself Empress Luo. After more than 10 years of perseverance, she finally got what she wanted. When people mentioned Ning Zitong, the first thing they would think of was Empress Luo. She was the successor of the Longhu Club, the one who truly laid the foundation for this place to become one of the top forces. Even though she was still participating in professional competitions, she was already the de facto leader of the club, equivalent to the sect master of the Shangqing sect or the abbot of Daxing Temple. Seeing Lu Cheng's back disappear through the door, Lu Xiaofei didn't hide it from Amen. She lowered her voice and asked, "How do you feel?" Xuanhuan pondered for a few seconds and said, "He seems easy to talk to and polite, but in reality that's not necessarily the case. At such a young age with such strength, which one of them isn't young and arrogant?" Lu Xiaofei muttered to herself. Tap tap tap. Zhang Shouyin led Lu Qing forward and asked in a seemingly casual manner, "Do you have a specialized legal advisor?" "Yeah, my senior sister introduced him," Lu Qing answered calmly. Before signing the contract with the Longhu Club, he had asked his senior sister to find a reliable lawyer for help. Shi Yuejian directly introduced Lin Xiukong, who was from the Ice God sect, to him. After that, both parties were very satisfied. Even though Lu Qing had to pay a hefty sum, he really got what he paid for. He picked out all the unfavorable terms, leaving the Longhu Club speechless. They could only make changes. Zhang Shouyin nodded slightly, stopped at the elevator door and pressed the up button. "Do you have anyone to help you with your business matters?" "Not at the moment," Lu Qing smiled. When the elevator door opened, Zhang Shouyin stepped in and said thoughtfully, "You can let the club handle this first. You haven't reached physical invulnerability, so there aren't many such matters. There's no need to specially find someone. Moreover, we only take a 10% commission." Lu Qing nodded. "Then draft a contract for me to take a look." "Sure." Zhang Shouyin heaved a sigh of relief. He walked into the corridor on the 5th floor and came to an office with a mahogany door. He knocked 3 times rhythmically. "Come in." A voice as clear as spring water sounded from within. At first it sounded like an 18 or 19-year-old. However, upon closer inspection, one could feel a hint of maturity. Zhang Shouyin turned the doorknob and pushed open the door. He said with a smile, "Empress Luo, Lu Qing is here." Behind the dark red desk, a woman with black hair in a bun looked up, revealing a face that was both happy and angry at the same time. She seemed to be of foreign or ethnic descent. Her facial features were delicate and elegant. She was beautiful and moving. Time hadn't left a mark on her face, only leaving behind an air of elegance. Even though Lu Qing was used to seeing fairies, his eyes lit up. "Empress Luo looks better in real life than on TV. No wonder she could change her title. It's all because of her looks." As expected of a famous beauty of the previous generation. While he was silently complaining, Ning Zitong smiled faintly and said to Zhang Shouyin, "Sorry to bother you. Sorry for the trouble. Go and do your own thing." "Yes." Zhang Shouyin replied excitedly. He left the room in high spirits as though he was on steroids and closed the door. "Hello, Senior Ning." Hello, Senior Empress Luo." Lu Qing had almost forgotten the rule that martial artists with titles had to be addressed by their titles. Ning Zitong spat and smiled unpleasantly. "Senior? Am I very old? Call me sister. Sister Ning. Do you understand?" Lu Qing was dumbfounded. "Senior, where did your dignity go?" "Although we can be considered to be of the same generation as my master," Ning Zitong smiled and said, "this is courtesy. Do you understand? Women are all obsessed with age. Ko often complains that she's no longer a 17 or 18-year-old girl." Lu Qing's thoughts drifted as he followed her advice. "Hello, Sister Ning." "That's more like it." Ning Zitong put down the fountain pen that could turn into a hidden weapon at any moment. She stood up gracefully and said with a smile, "Come with me to meet those guys. After all, you're our quasi-physical invulnerability expert." Meeting the other physical invulnerability experts? Was he going to meet the Dragon King? Lu Qing suddenly felt a little excited. He didn't notice that Empress Luo had left her seat and walked to his side. The sweet and clear scent of perfume entered his nose. He came back to his senses and saw Empress Luo's long bohemian dress that reached her knees. Noticing Lu Cheng's gaze, Ning Zitong laughed self-deprecatingly. "When I was young, I liked simple and elegant dresses the most. Now I've fallen in love with bright colors." Yeah. Lu Qing didn't know how to continue. He changed the topic and asked, "Ning Qian, Sister Ning, are we meeting the Dragon King and the rest?" "Yes." Ning Zitong opened the door and led the way out. She said with a smile, "They're not like me. They're easy to talk to and get along with. However, once you get a feel for them, they're not particularly weird. For someone who can achieve physical invulnerability at such a young age, the first thing that distinguishes them is their pride. Secondly, they're quite self-centered. Tricking the Dragon King is right." Lu Qing listened silently and followed half a step behind. Turning into the corridor, they entered the room labeled Conference Room. The first thing Lu Qing saw was the broad shoulders and tall back of the Dragon King. He was standing by the window opposite, looking out. He wasn't exactly a burly man, but he gave off a soul-stirring sense of majesty. To the left of the conference table sat a giant. Even if he didn't stand up, one could imagine his muscular figure of over 2 meters. This was the other first pin mighty one of the Longhu Club, Optimus Prime Longzhen. Even though he was tall and strong, his flexibility and footwork weren't inferior to the others. Longzhen's skin was tanned to bronze. He didn't have a single strand of hair on his head, which was as smooth as a mirror. His 2 thick eyebrows looked like they were outlined by ink, giving him a ferocious look. He was squinting his beady eyes and sizing up Lu Cheng with a half-smile. Opposite Longzhen was a girl with short hair. Her skin was tanned, and the contours of her face were gentle. However, there was a hidden fierceness that made it hard to look straight at her. "This is my disciple, Guojia. She achieved physical invulnerability 3 years ago. She's still a 3rd pin." Ning Zitong extended her hand and introduced, "Her nickname is Martial Arts Fanatic. You can roughly imagine her personality. Just like now. Even though she's gentle and quiet, I'm sure she's muttering in her heart that Master is so bored to meet Lu Cheng. If I have the time, I might as well go to the volcano laboratory and practice my physical invulnerability secret arts." Guojia seemed to have been exposed. She helplessly shouted in a low voice, "Master." Ning Zitong smiled and stopped bullying her disciple. She pointed at Longzhen and said, "This fatty may look fierce, but other than his girly mouth, he's actually a very humorous and kind-hearted person. Of course, his ego is also ridiculously strong. He's always claimed that he's number 1, number 2, and number 3. He can't stand the Dragon King and challenges him every few days. Don't be surprised if you see him bruised and swollen, or being carried to the emergency room." "Empress Luo, I don't like what you're saying. What do you mean my ego is ridiculously strong?" Longzhen opened his beady eyes and nagged, "Lu Yen is our coach and member. He's from your master's generation. He's been practicing martial arts for more than 40 years, but he still hasn't matured and is extremely arrogant. He didn't come today, but he said that he'll meet him when Lu Cheng makes the great leap." The second half of Longzhen's sentence was directed at Lu Cheng. Then he continued, "I claim to be number 1 in heaven and number 2 in earth, while I'm number 3. However, Lu Yen has always said, I'm the only one apart from heaven. Look whose ego is stronger. Him." Lu Qing almost burst out laughing. "However, he's not the one with the strongest ego. The one with the strongest ego is the one behind him. Guess what?" Longzhen pointed at Dragon King Qin Chitao with his chin. "He doesn't even care about God. He's the only one in the world. You don't have the will to rule. That's how you'll be for the rest of your life." A deep, magnetic voice sounded. Dragon King turned around. He was handsome with sharp eyebrows, bright eyes, and a mature aura. Lu Qing was agitated. He opened his mouth but didn't know what to say. All right. There's a press conference later. Lu Qing will be joining our Longhu Club. Other than me, there's another person to hold the fort." "Who's going?" Ning Zitong didn't raise her voice. Martial arts fanatic Guojia lowered her head and practiced her swordsmanship with her fingers. Longzhen was deep in thought and seemed to be struggling. Dragon King Qin Chitao put his hands behind his back and walked step by step towards the door of the conference room. Silence filled the room. Before he left, Qin Chitao didn't turn back. He said in a deep voice, "Let's go. P.S. This chapter is a little long, so it's late. Looking for recommendations on Monday."